Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the Nika Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Possessed Devil's Foot Quirk. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Enji Todoroki, also known as the number 2 pro hero Endeavor. To villains, he was a force to be reckoned with thanks to his powerful fire quirk and excellent use and application of it in the field. To the public, however, while not on the same level as All Might, many loved the number 2 hero. With his position, most believed to be borderline permanent, he has many a busy day today. For instance, he solved 37 mugging attempts. Somehow a few were by already caught that day perpetrators, 2 attempted hit and runs, 3 almost accidental hit and runs out of 7 counts of speeding, oddly enough none with speed-based or boosting quirk. And to top it all off, a supervillain who had successfully taken out 10 other heroes. The point? He was tired yet still alert in his observations on his path home. "I'm home," Endeavor announced as he walked through the door, only to be met with his 6-year-old son Shoto running towards him. "Hide me," he whimpered after hiding behind his father. "Shoto, you can run, but you can't hide." Around the corner came Endeavor's second oldest and only daughter, Fuyumi. "The tickle monsters found you," the 12-year-old cooed. Endeavor watched as Fuyumi chased her little brother while circling their father like he was a simple bit of furniture. He couldn't help but smirk at this sight. It reminded him of how similar Fuyumi was to her mother. After watching them a little longer, he decided to step in and picked Shoto up and placed him on his shoulder. "No fair," Fuyumi pouted. "Tough, besides, I helped you when Tuya used to tickle you." "Only fair I do the same for Shoto," Endeavor stated as Fuyumi just continued to pout at her bad and little brother. The three of them walked to the living room to find Tuya and Natsuo. Tuya was busying working on his homework. Enji was proud his oldest working hard to get into UA hero course without a recommendation. He did find it funny how the 15-year-old flat out refused the recommendation. Fuyumi just walked off still in a mood after her father stopped her fun with Shoto. Natsuo, on the other hand, was seemingly hanging around looking for something to do. "Dad, can you put me down?" Shoto asked. Enji complied and lowered him, "Son, back down to the ground." Once he was safely back on the ground, Shoto ran over to Tuya. "Why didn't you stop big sis?" he asked his older brother. "I told you, if you provoked her, she would bite back or in this case tickle," Tuya chuckled without taking his eyes off his homework. Shoto grumbled incoherently at his brother, only to have said brother ruffle his red and white hair. Endeavor watched as Shoto walked away from his older brother get back to his drawing that he had been working on before he got Fuyumi's attention. No matter how many times he thought about it, he still couldn't believe he was the father in this scenario. Frankly, he never imagined family life, but that was before Ray, simpler but by no means better times. "You okay, Dad?" Tuya asked. "You look like you've gone toe-to-toe with All Might and didn't get stopped fighting him, till they forced you to," Tuya jokingly said. "Oh, haha, hilarious," Endeavor said sarcastically as he laid down on the couch. "Just too many people thinking they can do what they want and not face the consequences. Seriously, I had one person who was beating his wife on what seemed like a daily basis. People like that make me sick," he grumbled as he made himself comfortable on the couch. "Well, at least you got the guy. And besides knowing you, the worst part of all these cases is the paperwork afterward, am I right?" Tuya asked. "Dad's asleep," Natsuo pointed out to his older brother. Natsuo was proven right when they heard their father start to snore. It was then that an evil grin crept across Natsuo's face. "Shoto, hand me your makers. Let's have some fun." Endeavor didn't know when he had fallen asleep or for how long, but he awoke to the sounds of his wife, Ray, giggling. When he opened his eyes, he saw her standing above him, seemingly barely able to hold her laughter in. "What's so funny?" he asked. "NNG, why you are, FAAs," Ray said through the giggling and handed her husband a mirror. When Endeavor looked at his reflection, he found his face covered in scribbles, from whiskers, spirals and other childlike drawings across his face. The shock of this almost made him drop the mirror. Endeavor's roar shook the house and altered just about anyone in a 1-mile radius. That his kids were in trouble, or to be more precise, Natsuo and Shoto were in big trouble. Endeavor loved his family, and being a hero, there was no doubt about that, but some days, it seems to leave him a shell, mainly from the exhaustion. Granted, he knew it was partly his fault this time, spending most of yesterday working and then having to punish Natsuo and Shoto. Mainly them being grounded for the next 2 weeks and sitting in the corner for an hour. Sadly for the flame hero, Ray had gotten a pic of his scribbled face and made it her new wallpaper. Thankfully, due to the excessive work he did yesterday, he found himself leaving earlier than usual today, so deciding to take advantage of this, Endeavor opted to walk home today. It wasn't commonly known, but the number 2 hero quite enjoyed a quiet walk. Then again, when your daily routine is facing off against villains, it's good to have a moment relax. It defiantly helped Endeavor more times than he can count. So, it's a Sunday, that means the kids don't have school, but Toya and Fuyumi will likely be at a friend's house. Just means only Natsuo and Shoto will be in for certain. Endeavor groaned as he stretched his arms. Okay, defiantly following Rei advice and going for an early night, granted knowing her the second she sees me this exhausted, she'll force me to go to bed, he let out a mighty laugh. Endeavor continued to enjoy his walk home. It wasn't until he got to a residential area where he had to handle a few kids who recognized the hero in his casual clothes and were asking for autographs and a few pics. The parents kept trying to apologize for children's rudeness, but Endeavor didn't care. He was saying that he knew how kids were when they saw a hero, especially one in the top 10. After saying goodbye to the last kid, Endeavor was about to leave himself, when he heard the sound of a window being smashed. Looking up, he saw a rolling pin go flying out a window from one of the apartments. Endeavor was confused, but his experience told him this was likely one of 2 things, maybe 3. Most likely, a couple was arguing and had gotten to the stage of throwing things at each other, or some brat had gotten set off with their parents or something else and threw the rolling pin out of sheer frustration. Either way, though, Endeavor decided to investigate, expecting to either stop a couple from killing each other or to reprimand a brat who needs to control his temper. Locating the apartment was tricky, but Endeavor found it, nonetheless. As he reached the door, however, he heard what sounded like a woman shouting and more smashing. He placed his ear against the door to see if he can hear anything more coherent. Hideo, bastard, aren't you? The woman screamed. Hearing enough, Endeavor knocked on the door, deciding to play it safe. After a minute, the door opened to reveal slim green-haired woman. Although she was smiling, Endeavor felt this was just for show. Yes, is something the matter? The woman asked innocently. Yes, I saw what seemed to be a rolling pin go flying out your window. I came round to make sure everything was all right. The woman's eyes widened for a moment only for her to continue to smile at her visitor. Oh, that, well, it's embarrassing, but I was watching my favorite show, and they just killed off one of my favorite characters. So I got upset and threw the rolling pin. It's idiotic, I know, but I guess some people get too into their shows. The woman started to laugh, but Endeavor noticed she was slowly starting to retreat back into her apartment. Well, I can understand that my wife and even my son have similar reactions. I once found they froze the TV due to a similar reason. Man, the look on my son's face was priceless. The pair laughed at this, Endeavor, using this moment and his height to sneak a peek into the apartment. He quirkily noticed a few things were scattered on the floor and what seemed to be a broken All Might figure as well. Oh, by the way, my name is Enji Todoroki, Endeavor greeted in a kindly manner, extending his hand forward in a friendly gesture. Oh, well, my name is Inko. Inko Midoriya, Inko replied as she shook Enji's hand. She's hiding something, that's for sure, Endeavor thought as he shook Inko's hand. From what I heard, it could be something akin to domestic abuse, but if I go barging in without hearing or seeing something suspicious, then I'm just basically asking for trouble. I need to remain calm, keep up the appearance that I'm just a concerned passerby who's having a chit-chat. Worst case I leave, but keep an eye on the place, but that has a good chance of not ending well, Endeavor thought as Inko kept talking. Endeavor kept talking to Inko for another few minutes, trying his best to listen out for something that would confirm his suspicions. It wasn't until he started hearing what sounded like a weak coming from inside the apartment that his hunch was beginning to look right. Inko looked back into the apartment, and Endeavor caught a look of disgust, if only for a moment, until she was smiling back at him. Well, it's been a pleasure, but I got to go, got to get this place cleaned before my husband comes home, Inko said as she quickly tried to shut the door on Endeavor. Only to be met with his foot stopping the door from closing. Sorry, but that's where I have to say no, Endeavor growled. With little effort, Endeavor forced the door open and walked past Inko to explore the apartment. What the hell? Inko screamed, get out of my DMN house or I'll call the police and the heroes on you. Inko's whole innocent tone was gone now. She continued to scream at Endeavor. Ma'am, I am a pro-hero, and I can tell you for a fact that we are allowed to conduct searches if we find a reason to believe the civilian is conducting illegal actions, and ever since you opened that door, I was able to tell you're hiding something. You don't want me to find out something that can likely result in your arrest. Endeavor said as he searched the apartment until he stumbled upon a locked door. This however proved useless when faced against Endeavor. Using his quirk, he melted the lock on the door in an instant. Once opening the door, he was met with what seemed to be a child's bedroom or what used to be one. The wallpaper was peeling from the walls, and Endeavor noticed a worn-out mattress on the floor with a thin blanket. No child could live in this place. Hell, this seems more like a cell than a room. It was then that Endeavor heard the whimpering again, this time coming from the closet. He approached the closet slowly, pulling the door open. The pro-hero was shocked to find a boy with messy green hair, likely no older than his youngest son, cowering in the corner of the closet. The child soon noticed he had company. He looked up at Endeavor. His eyes filled terror. It was then that Endeavor noticed the boy was bleeding from a wound on his head. The child was shaking with fear. Endeavor just wanted to reach out and hug the boy to assure him he was all right, but he knew this could make him react negatively. "Hey, it's okay, I'm a friend," Endeavor said calmly, "I'm not going to hurt you." "Sorry, Yui, pulse, Mom, why?" the boy blubbered as he continued to cry his little eyes out. Endeavor felt a part of himself die watching this. "You don't need to worry. I'm a pro-hero. I'm here to help. You know who I am?" Endeavor asked. The boy just shook his head in response. "I'm the number 2 hero Endeavor," to prove himself. Endeavor activated his quirk to show the boy his iconic flaming facial hair. Before Endeavor could talk any further, he heard a crash outside the room, and then it hit him. He had been so focused on searching the apartment and the discovery of the boy, he forgot to detain Inko. He told the boy he'd be right back and raced out of the room. He just caught a glimpse of Inko fleeing through the front door. Not missing a beat, Endeavor ran out of the apartment and looked for his fleeing suspect. He saw Inko had already made to the ground floor and was fleeing the scene. "Oh, like hell you're getting away from, you sick bstrd," Endeavor thought as he jumped over the railing. Just as he started to freefall, he activated his quirk and propelled himself towards his target. It was a new move he had only recently developed, and this was obvious to anyone watching the man. But his determination fueled him. Still, he was only in the next street when he caught up to Inko and landed in front of the woman. "Going somewhere," he growled. Before Inko could utter a coherent response, Endeavor forced her to the ground, the woman barely able to put up a struggle to the giant that was Enji Todoroki. "Inko Midoriya, I'm arresting you on suspicion of child abuse and neglect," Endeavor said as he grabbed the capture tape he always kept on his person and restrained Inko. Endeavor called up his agency, and soon enough, the police were on the scene. He gave the officers a rundown of the situation and said he'd gladly head to the station later, to provide a more detailed account. But before that, he had to go back and make sure the boy was safe. Endeavor noticed at the mention of the boy, Inko got angrier as she thrashed around in the back of the police car. Endeavor ran back to the apartment as fast as he could. He arrived shortly after the ambulance he had his agency call arrived on the scene. "Ah, Endeavor, thank goodness you're back. We have an issue," one of the paramedics said as he walked up to the hero. "What's the matter? Is the boy all right?" Endeavor asked. "That's the problem. We can't get close to him. When one of the other paramedics tried to help, he started panicking. We tried to let him know we just want to help, but he still panics whenever we get close to him," the paramedic said as he and Endeavor walked to the apartment. "I'm worried, if we can't treat him soon, his injury may worsen, and if we tried to sedate him, I know he'll likely react worse, and that could likely result in worsening his injury. I'll try my best to calm the boy. Hopefully, I can convince him we just want to help him," Endeavor replied. The pair got back to Inko's apartment. As Endeavor walked in, he noticed a couple of paramedics were standing red outside the child's room. Before heading in, Endeavor grabbed the broken All Might figure he noticed earlier. Walking into the room, he saw the young boy hadn't moved from his spot in the closet. Walking closer, he saw the boy give him a slightly less terrified look than before. He sat just in front of the closet, avoiding making the boy feel scared. "Sorry for up and leaving, but that mean woman who locked you in here tried to run away, but I made sure she was caught," Endeavor chuckled. "Yo, caught, mama," the boy blubbered. "So she was your mother, huh? Could have fooled me from how she acted, and she kept you in this room," Endeavor grumbled as he looked around the room once again. "Granted, I'm using the term room in its widest possible definition. It, not, fault, it's m.ine. What?" This comment defiantly got Endeavor's attention. "She got mdwhn. I used my cue, quirk," the boy said. Seemingly he was starting to calm down. "So she got mad 'cause you used your quirk. Was it an accident? Did you hurt her?" Endeavor asked. "No, it just acts up. That's what the D, Osior said." "So, your mother got upset at you and hit you, just because your quirk acts up from time to time?" Endeavor asked again. "Yes," she said. "Quirk is hid, us," the boy said as he sounded out the last word. How can a quirk be hideous? Sure, a quirk can be scary at times, especially when they first manifest. Endeavor was speaking from experience, not only when he first got his quirk, but when his oldest son's quirk first manifested. But how could your mother make you think your quirk is so horrible? She said it dash. It's a villain's quirk. It rain, ed her of? Him. The boy started crying again at the end of his sentence. Clearly, the mention of the man scared the boy. Endeavor was beginning to wonder how deep this rabbit hole was going. Crap, he's getting worse. Ugh, what would that V-haired blonde windbag say, to help this kid? Endeavor thought, then a light went off in his head. You know, I've faced a lot of villains in my time, and you want to know something? I never once saw a villainous quirk. Sure, I've seen what other people call villainous quirks, typically blood-based or had a connection to something that scared most people or even ones that people just found creepy. But yet it was never the quirk that made them a villain. It was they choose to use it in villainous ways. Now I don't know who this person is or what he did to make your mother punish you for having a similar quirk, but the most important thing to remember is that a quirk is what you make of it, regardless of your history. So you know what I see in front of me? He asked. The boy shook his head in response. I don't see someone with a hideous or villainous quirk, but a little kid who is suffering, 'cause of someone else, and that is something I won't allow. Endeavor finished his speech with a proud smile on his face and the boy looking at him in awe and the slightest hint of a small, not only a hint. Why you, so on, like all might, the boy replied. Endeavor just chuckled at the boy's statement. I guess I did, granted he can be annoying from time to time. He sometimes has a good point. Endeavor turned back to see the paramedics were still waiting at the door for his signal the boy was okay. Listen, I heard you got scared when one of the paramedics tried to approach you after I left. They aren't here to hurt you or punish you. They just want to help you and stop your injury from getting worse. So can you please let them have a look at your injury? It was then that Endeavor pulled out the broken All Might figure he found at the entrance. He held it out to the young boy. Sheepishly he reached out and grabbed the toy. Seekin why, stay too? He asked quietly. Of course, don't worry. I'll keep you safe. And then the realization kicked in again. Oh, you know, in all the commotion I forgot to ask you what your name is. Sorry about that. Endeavor apologized as he chuckled. Izuku, my name is Izuku, the boy, now known as Izuku, whispered. After that, the paramedics were called over and got to work on patching Izuku up. The entire time Endeavor was remaining next to the boy, even when they said he needed to go to the hospital for further examination. NG still stayed with the kid, but not before calling up Ray to let her know he likely be late home that night, thanks to an incident. I asked if you wanted me to do a good Endeavor FIC and you said yes, so here it is. This chapter was fun to work on and try good Endeavor. The only con of this FIC is I hated writing sheet inko, but it was needed for the FIC. Also before I go, thanks for all the support for the new FIC Lapis Izumi and the continuous support of Izumi Aizawa. It was a known fact that Endeavor hated waiting in hospitals, waiting for the doctors to finalize medical examinations, or get post-mortem results. Granted, these still paled in comparison to when Ray had given birth. Nevertheless, today was defiantly a close second. Actually close fifth technically speaking. Endeavor was waiting on the Izuku's medical examination results. Said boy was asleep in the hospital bed he was sitting next to. The boy had begged Endeavor to stay, worried something might happen. Endeavor didn't have a problem with this. Granted, he was planning on staying anyway, so this just made it easier. It wasn't till an hour later that the head doctor had returned with the results. Oh, good to see you're still here, Endeavor, the doctor said as he walked over to check on Izuku. I see he's still asleep. Yeah, he was having what I assumed was a nightmare a bit ago, but I was able to calm him, Endeavor stated as he brought his hand through Izuku's curls. So what did the test say? When Endeavor asked about the examination, the doctor's face turned sour. The examination. Let's just say, as a brief summary, that boy's mother will most certainly be heading to prison, the doctor stated as he looked over the notes. Well, we patched up his head wound and found bruises, likely from blunt force trauma. We found 6 of his ribs were cracked, bruising both old and new across his body, mainly in the chest and leg. We also found a couple of faint scars on his torso, and we found signs of malnutrition. Endeavor felt a chill go up to his spine when the doctor finished listing off the injuries Izuku had. His mother did all that just because of his quirk. Endeavor felt sick to his core. Sadly, that is the case, sir. I've seen many children go through this. Parents abusing their children because of their quirk or lack thereof. The doctor replied, he truly hated days like today. Have you been able to find any medical records for Izuku or even his mother? Endeavor growled at the mention of the woman. Sadly, not yet. But we've got a few staff members looking and contacted the nearby hospitals, but it may take a few hours or days. Well, I'll leave you be, I'll have someone keep an eye on the little guy when you leave. Soon the doctor left the pro-hero and child alone again in the room. Endeavor looked back to Izuku, sleeping on the bed. A part of him grateful he found the boy before it was too late, but another part. Midoriya, why does that name sound familiar? The next day Endeavor was able to get his hands on Izuku's medical records, and he had remembered where he heard the name Midoriya from. Midoriya Hisashi, aka Demon's Breath. Known villain, wanted for multiple counts of murder, destruction of property, assault, illegal quirk use. DMN, where does this list end? Endeavor asked as he went through Hisashi's criminal record. It almost seemed endless. He had found the file at his agency that morning, buried under Burning's idea of origination. After what seemed forever, he finally found the info on his quirk. Okay, it seems when he was 4, his quirk manifested, and he had a basic fire-breathing quirk, standard. But when he reached adulthood out of nowhere, his quirk evolved. Endeavor was perplexed. While quirk evolution was common, but mainly in people who have trained for years or were in a life or death situation. His evolved quirk allowed him to conjure fire from his limbs and increased both the strength and heat of his fire breathing. Side note, what made his quirk stand out was his unique green flames. Endeavor continued to read through the file. He learned that Hisashi hadn't been sighted in Japan for almost a year, likely fled to lay low somewhere else or it got too dangerous for him here. It makes sense, though, with not only himself but All Might living in Japan. Now it was time for Izuku's file. To Enji's surprise, the file was bare bones. It listed his date of birth, family, and last known address. When he looked at the medical section, there was barely anything as well. The only mention of a trip to the hospital was when he was 4 and came in with a broken arm. His mother claimed he fell down the stairs, a clear lie after noticing this was a day after his quirk had been diagnosed and catalogued. Okay, let's see what this villainous quirk is. Enji turned the page and found Izuku quirk profile. Quirk, Devil's Foot. The quirk allows the user to conjure flames around his legs. Said user seems to have either fireproof skin or high durability to fire. Side note, unlike most fire quirks, the user's flames take on a green color instead of the normal red-orange. The only thing remotely villainous is the naming convention. He growls as he remembers the childish prejudice towards his quirk during school. Now it made sense to Enji. When Izuku's quirk came in, all anyone saw was his father's quirk and not the little boy. The rest of the file had little to offer, or at least anything that could help. Endeavor let out a sigh as he leaned back in his chair. Again. Enji's father shouted as he smacked the kendo stick across the floor as the 8-year-old Enji Todoroki laid sprawled out on the floor. I told you, boy, you were made for one thing and one thing only. Pull the family name out the mud your grandfather left it in, now do it again. His father screamed. This was Enji Todoroki's life, daily physical abuse, coupled with sociological damage. He wasn't born from love. His parents only got together to create the perfect fire quirk. It was one of the first things he could remember. Hell, the two hated each other most days. He tried to push himself up, but his body gave out when he got onto his hands and knees. This just made his father angrier. DMN it, boy! His father shouted as he grabbed his son by his shirt. Don't act like you're done. We're done when I say so, and I know you've been through worse. He forced Enji to his feet to resume his training. After an hour of more training, Enji's father finally let him go to bed. Enji limped down the hallway, his body covered in bruises and his flames. He was forced to keep it active for as long as possible. This was the most natural part of his training. Enji's anger towards his father always made his quirk flare up. He hated the man with every fiber of his being. I hate him, I hate him, I hate him, Enji's flames grew even stronger and hotter. His hatred was fueling them. But he was so caught up in his thoughts. He failed to notice his flames changing to a deep blue in color. Enji awoke from his nightmare. He was panting like he had just run a marathon. Looking to his left, he saw Rei with a look of worry in her eyes and saw she had her hand on his shoulder. Sorry if I scared you, Endeavor mumbled. It's okay. I know, guess both our pasts still like to linger in the back of our heads, but we can't let that define us now, Rei said in a quiet tone. Enji pulled Rei into a hug. They stood there in silence for a moment. Moments like this made Enji wonder how he convinced the snow angel to go out on a date with him, let alone marry him. The pair eventually broke off from their hug, and Rei looked at Izuku and Hisahi's files. So what's with these two, looking for a villain through the family? Rei asked. No, it's part of a case I'm working on. Abusive parents. He replied. Rei frowned, wrapping her arms around herself, fighting off her old memories. Enji put his hand on her shoulder, proving her comfort. What's going to happen to him? She asked. Well, we got the mother at the police station at the moment, and her son is currently in the hospital. According to his medical report and his file. It seems likely his mother has been abusing him since the day his quirk had arrived. Enji replied. Rei looked back at the picture of the izuku in the file. She frowned at the idea that any mother could abuse their own child, but a part of her knew it to be true. Any idea why she hated his quirk so much? She asked again. Well, his father is a notorious villain, and both their quirks have similarities. My speculation is, Hisashi likely abused her until he either got bored of her or he was forced to flee Japan. Then when her son's quirk arrived, all she saw was another version of him, only this time, he was the one who couldn't fight back. Enji theorized. Rei forgot how well her husband could break down cases like this in a few minutes. It made sense how he had made it into the top 10 so quickly. But what will happen to him? Rei asked again. Enji sighed. The doctor says he'll be in the hospital for a month, afterward if we can't find any other family members. He'll likely end up in the foster care system. He stated, but scowled. But with a quirk tied to a well-known and dangerous villain, he'll likely be abused all over again, bullied by the children and mistreated by the care home staff. For all we know, this will result in him becoming like his father. Enji groaned as he leaned back in his chair. He wanted to help the boy, but nothing came to mind. Well, there is another way, Rei said sheepishly. Enji looked at his wife somewhat confused. We could always take him in ourselves, Rei finished. Rei's idea, in Enji's mind, was brilliant. The only issue would be though if Izuku would want to live with them. Enji spent the next 2 weeks visiting Izuku. He was surprised to learn how much of a hero fanboy he was. Izuku asked Endeavor 100 questions a day about his work, quirk, or on the villains he faced. Izuku was defiantly confused when Endeavor told him of the time he fought a guy, whose quirk allowed him to control any lane lines painted on the road. It was now a week till Izuku's release from the hospital was due. Endeavor saw this as the perfect time to act. He was sitting next to Izuku's hospital bed. He was in the middle of writing out a report, while Izuku was watching the news. Endeavor, why do you keep coming to talk to me? Izuku asked. Simple, I want to make sure you're recovering well, and from what the doctors said, you've almost made a full recovery. Endeavor replied. He saw Izuku smile for a moment from Izuku. He was glad Izuku got calmer around him. The pair sat in silence, enjoying watching the news. That all came crashing down when the next story came up. It was about Izuku's mother. She had been convicted of child abuse, quirk discrimination, and child neglect. Before the story could continue, Endeavor grabbed the remote and turned the TV off. He saw Izuku hug his knees to his chest and tremble with fear. Shoo, sh. Endeavor pulls the boy into a gentle embrace. She can't hurt you, I'm right here. Maybe. Izuku whispers. You want to talk about it? I hear it helps. Izuku shakes his head. Alright, how about a happier topic? What about heroes? Who's your favorite? All Might, Izuku whispers. Endeavor groaned, hearing that name. Of course you like that blonde idiot, Endeavor replied. What's wrong with All Might? He saves everyone with a smile, Izuku asked. More annoyed that blonde idiot basically has every child in the world as a fan. What about the rest of us? Endeavor stated. Izuku laughed at Endeavor's opinion on All Might. The pair continued talking about other heroes for another hour. You asked about my family, do you want me to tell you? Izuku said out of nowhere, catching Endeavor off guard. Sure, but only if you want to talk about it, Izuku nodded back. Okay then, what can you tell me about your father? We didn't find anything that could be his at your home. Mama, she got rid of it all, said she wanted to forget him, Izuku said. What was he like? Endeavor asked. He hit, Mama, all the time, Izuku whimpered. I tried to help, but he just started hurting me. Where is he? Gone, left, before my quirk came. It was now clear to Enji, his theory about Inko was right. She was in an abusive relationship with Hisashi, and after he left and Izuku quirk came in, she let all her anger and frustrations out on him. Endeavor pulled Izuku into another hug. The pair sat there in silence for a few minutes till Endeavor could tell Izuku had calmed down. Endeavor, what's going to happen to me? Izuku wheezed. Well, we've sadly failed to locate any family members of yours. Granted, Endeavor wasn't going to any of them near him if they did find any. So you'll likely end up in a foster home, until you either are adopted or reach adulthood. Endeavor felt Izuku cling to his costume. The boy was terrified of that idea, rightly so. But, there is another option. What is it? Izuku asked as he looked up at Endeavor. You can come live with me, and my family, Endeavor responded. He saw Izuku's eyes start to fill with tears at this idea. Why you, want me to live with you? Izuku blubbered. Of course, my wife brought the idea up, but I'd be lying if I wasn't considering it myself, Endeavor chuckled. Only problems though be, you'll fall in love with Rei's cooking day one, Natsuo will try to get you to wear his terrible shirts, and when my daughter sees you, I have a feeling she'll hug you and never let go. Endeavor laughed at the times he had to save Natsuo and Shoto from Fuyumi's hugs. What about my Kyuka RK? Don't worry. No one thinks it's a villainous quirk, Endeavor said as he ruffled Izuku's green hair. I think it's an impressive ability, defiantly more of a hero quirk in my opinion than a villainous quirk. So would you like to live with us? Endeavor asked. A part of Izuku thought this must have been a cruel dream, that he wake up any second to find Endeavor hadn't saved him, and he was still trapped in his room, waiting for his mother to come in and beat him for using his quirk. But he knew this wasn't a dream, from the taste of the hospital food, the fluffiness of the special blanket the doctor had given him, and the warmth Endeavor gave off, especially with his hugs. CCN, I, PLPLEASESTY, WTH, you, Izuku asked through all the tears and snot. Of course you can, Endeavor responded, bringing Izuku back into another hug. He felt Izuku crying through his suit, but he knew these were tears of joy, not of fear or sadness. The rest of the week flew by as Endeavor had the paperwork sorted to become Izuku's legal guardian. Granted, he wouldn't have the name Todoroki, that only become possible after the Todorokis proved they provided a safe and loving home to Izuku. The only issue at the moment was Izuku's room wasn't finished, so they decided to bunk him with Shoto, who had no problem. He was excited to meet the famous Izuku. On the day Izuku was scheduled to be released, Endeavor came to pick him up after a short patrol. The 6-year-old was nervous but did his best to put on a brave face. Endeavor found it adorable at Izuku's brave face. He was basically imitating All Might's signature smile. Once the pair reached the front door of the hospital, Endeavor lifted Izuku onto his shoulders and walked out the front door and made his way home, Izuku the whole time loving the view from Endeavor's shoulders. Man, you all love some good Endeavor, same here. The number of messages and reviews rooked me by surprise, but after Izumi Aizawa took off, I shouldn't be surprised. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this chapter and I hope you all have an amazing holiday and New Year. Chapter text. Getting home was no problem for Endeavor, even with his little passenger. Endeavor did notice a few odd looks from passers-by. Makes sense when you see the number 2 hero carrying a little boy on his shoulders. But now he had a problem when he got to the front gate. He noticed Izuku holding on to him tighter now. Even when he set him down, he clung to his leg with a tight grip. Endeavor was worried this may backfire now. I guess there's only one way to find out, the pro hero thought as he opened the front door to his home. I'm home, and I brought a guest, Endeavor shouted as he and Izuku entered the house. The pair were only in the house for a second until they ran into Rei, who the second she was in range, was pulled into a hug by Endeavor. Welcome back, Rei said as she hugged Enji. After the short embrace, she finally noticed the little green-haired boy hiding behind her husband. Oh, is this the legendary Izuku? She asked as she got out of the hug. Yes, Rei, this is Izuku. This is Rei, my wife, Endeavor remarked as he introduced the two to each other. Just be careful Izuku, she may look like an angel, but cross her. Well, let's just say there's a reason we don't have a guard dog, he jokingly said. Pleasure to meet you, Izuku, Rei said, ignoring Enji's remark. I heard a lot about you, like how much you love heroes, even ones from when I was your age. Izuku just nodded back at Rei from behind Endeavor's leg. Heroes are super cool, Izuku mumbled while mustering what little courage he had. Especially Endeavor, Izuku added. Rei giggled when she saw Enji try not to show he was blushing at Izuku's remark. Well, it looks like the number 2 hero has a new fanboy, Rei chuckled at Endeavor's expense. So Izuku, besides Endeavor, what heroes do you love? All of them, there are so many amazing heroes, Izuku said quietly. Rei just squealed at Izuku's love for all heroes. Enji, you lied to me, you said little Izuku was cute, he's adorable. Rei squealed again. It's as cute as when Shoto was a toddler and tried to wear your hero boots. Rei was practically buzzing at the memory of her little Shoto trying to play hero. Oh, I almost forgot, Izuku, I have someone who's very excited to meet you. You want to meet them? Izuku looked to Endeavor. He gave Izuku a reassuring nod, that Izuku mirrored to Rei. She quickly dashed around the corner. She returned not a moment later, this time though she was guiding a little boy with dual-colored hair that looked to be Izuku's age. Izuku, this is Shoto. He's my youngest son. Shoto, this is Izuku, the one your dad's been talking about, Rei said as she introduced the two boys to each other. Moving away from his mother, Shoto walked over to Izuku. Hi, I'm Shoto, pleased to meet you, Shoto said with a grin as he extended his hand out to Izuku. Hi, I'm Izuku, Izuku replied as he awkwardly shook Shoto's hand. Well, now that's done with, where are the others? Endeavor asked, curious as only Rei and Shoto came to greet Izuku. Well, Fuyumi is finishing off a project, Natsuo is away at football practice, and Tuya said he was training at UA with a couple of classmates. He promised to be back when dinner should be ready. After Rei's response, the four walked to the living room, Izuku still sticking close to Endeavor, still wary on this new environment and people around him. Once making it to the living room, Izuku looked around and found it surprisingly normal for a top-ranking hero home. Most think you get in the top 5, your home reflects that with designer furniture, paintings, and other materialistic things. But the room seemed like a mix of traditional Japanese decor and a more modern look that seemed close to Izuku's old living room. It was then, Izuku heard someone humming. Looking over, he saw a girl with white hair with streaks of red hair among it. Besides the glasses she wore, Izuku would have thought she was a clone of Rei. It was then said girl looked up from her work and spotted Izuku. Oh, hey there, are you one of Shoto's friends? The girl asked. This is Izuku, the one Dad told us about, Shoto said, answering for Izuku. Izuku, this is Fuyumi. She's my big sister, careful she loves to hug out of nowhere, Shoto whispering the last part. You can't blame me. I can't control myself around cute things. It's who I am, Fuyumi pouted after hearing what her little brother said. After the introductions were mostly over, Rei left to go finish making dinner, now with the help of Fuyumi, leaving Endeavor alone with Shoto and Izuku. Said pair spoke a little, Shoto being the one who had to keep the conversation going most the time, as Izuku was keeping his answers short and simple. Endeavor was worried he might have jumped the gun on Izuku moving in, sure while his family was doing their best to make him feel safe. Izuku hadn't gotten the chance to grow comfortable around anyone other than himself, and that could stunt his recovery tremendously. Before he could think on this further, Rei called them over for dinner. Laugh how, when he got to the table, he noticed Natsuo and Tuya had arrived home already. Endeavor laughed at how he could miss so much when deep in thought. So, how was everyone's day? Endeavor asked, breaking the silence. Nothing on my end, Natsuo said. Well, except for when one of my teammates broke a window trying to impress a couple of girls watching us practice, never seen him run so fast before, Natsuo snorted, remembering the teacher chased down his teammate. Same here, just a boring day at school, Fuyumi responded. What about you, Tuya, anything interesting at UA? Endeavor asked. Tuya simply shook his head at the question, clearly not in a talkative mood. By the way, what's with the kid? Natsuo asked, pointing to Izuku, who was in the middle of eating his dinner with a huge smile. Seriously, it's almost like this is the first good meal he's ever had. This is Izuku, remember I told you, he be living with us for the foreseeable future, Endeavor replied. Okay, but still, what's with him smiling so much at dinner? I get mom's cooking is good, but it can't be that good, Natsuo asked again. But it is delicious, much nicer than the hospital food, Izuku cheered as he took another bite out his dinner. Didn't your mom cook you anything? Natsuo asked the second he finished that sentence. Endeavor looked at him, his look alone basically screamed, shut up. He looked to Izuku to see. He had stopped eating and was now staring at what was left of his dinner. Mama, she only gave me what she didn't eat, it wasn't very nice. Izuku mumbled as he poked his food with his fork. Out of nowhere, however, Fuyumi pulled the little green bean into a hug with tears in her eyes. Don't worry, Izuku. I'll make sure you never go hungry or eat bad food again. Fuyumi screeched. Fuyumi, let go of Izuku! Endeavor screamed, shocking everyone, especially Fuyumi. It was then she looked to see Izuku was shielding his head with his arms, as he trembled in her hug. She quickly let go of Izuku and backed away. Endeavor was quick to rush over to Izuku. He heard Izuku mumble sorry and asking not to be hurt. Clearly, Fuyumi's sudden show of affection made Izuku panic and made him react like what he did when his mother would start beating him. After assuring Izuku he was safe, Endeavor lifted him up and took him out of the room to calm down. The whole time this was going on, Fuyumi was in tears that she made Izuku scared. The family was so focused on Izuku's reaction and Fuyumi crying. They failed to notice another family member leaving to follow Endeavor and Izuku. You sure, you're okay, Izuku? Endeavor asked Izuku, who was sitting against the wall in the corridor. Izuku nodded in response. Endeavor had brought Izuku out here in the hope to calm him down. He had at least been able to stop him crying and shaking, but now he was as quiet as a mouse. Listen, I'm going to see how the others are doing, will you be okay alone? Izuku nodded again to Endeavor's question. Soon Izuku was alone, or so he thought. "So you're the kid my dad was talking about," a voice called out from behind Izuku. Izuku quickly turned around to see the red-haired boy from dinner who barely said a thing. Endeavor had said this was his eldest son, Tuya. Said redhead crouched in front of Izuku and seemed to look him over. He extended his arm and reached for Izuku. Izuku shut his eyes and readied himself for anything. What he didn't expect was Tuya patting his head. Izuku opened his eyes to see Tuya smirking at him. "Sorry about my sister. Fuyumi heard about what you went through and wanted to hug you, just to let you know everything was going to okay. Must have thought since you're okay around our dad, you could at least handle a hug without freezing up, or you were just too cute for her to resist." Tuya chuckled the last part. "No, it's my fault," Izuku mumbled under his breath. "You know, I may not have gone through the stuff you went through, but if you want someone to talk to or even listen, just find me. Besides, I knew how it feels to hate your quirk." Tuya pulled his hand away from Izuku's curls. His hand conjured blue flames in front of Izuku's very eyes. Izuku recognized this flame instantly. "That's Endeavor's fire when he gets really hot," Izuku gasped. Tuya chuckled at Izuku comparison. "Basically, yeah, my dad says I got the strongest form of his fire. Downside my body is more built for ice-based quirks. When I was a kid I hated it, I could barely control my quirk, hell I almost burned down the house when I first got it." Tuya said, remembering the number of times his mom had to bandage him up after he lost control of his quirk. "They didn't get upset when you used your quirk?" Izuku asked. "Well, more upset that I rejected it. I just saw myself as a walking time bomb. Took a while, but I was able to gain control of my quirk. Now look at me, I'm working my butt off to get into UA's hero program." Tuya said, feeling proud of his goal, while Izuku's eyes grew to the size of dinner plates with awe that Tuya was aiming to be a student of UA. The boy seemed to lose his shyness as he asked Tuya multiple questions on UA and the heroic program. Tuya was a little surprised Izuku's amount of questions. It seems his dad was right. Izuku had a curious mind when he wasn't scared. The pair continued their conversation for a while until Endeavor returned with Fuyumi. "Good to see you two getting along," Endeavor said. "Yeah, turns out Izuku loves quirks, been asking about mine and my classmates," Tuya chuckled. He looked to his little sister, who was avoiding eye contact with everyone, likely ashamed she made Izuku cry, especially since she wanted to become a teacher to help kids, not scare them. "Izuku, Izuku, I'm so sorry." Fuyumi cried before Endeavor could finish his sentence. "When you told us about your mom, I just wanted to hug you because I wanted you to know you'll be safe here, and no one would hurt you like she did. Please forgive me." Fuyumi bowed her head as a means to apologize further to Izuku. Izuku didn't know how to process this. No one ever apologized to him. He was always made to say sorry, even when he was the victim. He looked back to Tuya and then Endeavor, both just shrugged back at him. So Izuku decided to do what seemed best, give Fuyumi a head pat. "It's okay, you just wanted to help," Izuku said as he patted Fuyumi's hair. "You were just trying to be nice. Please stop, if you keep being this cute I'll try to hug you again," Fuyumi ummed as she held herself back. Endeavor and Tuya laughed as they could see how much Fuyumi was resisting to hug Izuku. After things calmed down with the incident over dinner, soon things started to wind down till it was bedtime for the two youngest in the Todoroki household. Shoto kept saying he wasn't tired like all kids do, but his yawning betrayed him. Izuku, on the other hand, just seemed to do as he was told. Rei led the pair to Shoto's room where they had set up a fold-out bed for Izuku, as a temporary measure till his room was finished. "Night Shoto, night Izuku, sweet dreams you two." Rei kissed Shoto's forehead after tucking the two boys into bed and made her way to the bedroom door. "Rei," Izuku called out, causing her to stop just as she reached the door. Yes, Izuku?" she asked. "Can you leave the door open a bit? I don't like the dark," Izuku whimpered from under the covers, Rei clearly spotting Izuku's fear of the dark. "No problem, Izuku." As she left, Rei made sure to leave the room's door open just enough so the light from the hall could get in, without making it impossible to sleep. For the next half an hour, Izuku tried to get to sleep, but sleep evaded, almost like he didn't want to sleep. Looking to the other side of the room. "Hey, Shoto, you still up?" Izuku whispered, hoping his roommate was still awake. "Yeah," Shoto whispered back. "Your big brother told me your quirk is a mix of Endeavor's and your mom's, is that true?" "Yeah, see." Getting out of his bed, Shoto walked over to Izuku and held both his arms out. Soon Shoto's right arm started forming ice, while in his left hand, he conjured a little flame. "That's so cool. Your quirk is amazing, Shoto, much cooler than Kaken's quirk," Izuku gleefully said, just like when Tuya showed him his quirk earlier. "Who's Kaken?" Shoto asked. After hearing Shoto's question, Izuku lost the gleeful smile and energy he had a moment ago, as his face changed to a look of sadness. "Kaken, used to be, my best friend. What happened?" When I got my quirk, Kaken said I thought I was a villain, just like Mama. Izuku was holding his legs up to his chest by this point. Really? He started beating me up every time I said I wanted to be a hero. Said I'd just be another villain, he take down. No way, Dad said you're the opposite of a villain. I bet your quirk is super cool. Shoto words of encouragement resonated with Izuku. He remembered how nice Tuya was to him and how he said he'd be there to help. Maybe Shoto was the same. Do you want to see it? Izuku's question was out of nowhere, but Shoto smiled at his roommate and nodded vigorously. Motioning Shoto to back up, Izuku extended his legs off the bed. After a moment to ready himself, Izuku activated his quirk. Green flames started forming around both of Izuku's legs, stopping just at his knees. Shoto was left speechless at Izuku's display. His dad never told him what Izuku's quirk was, only he was bullied for it. Shoto couldn't understand why it was. Whoa, your quirk is amazing. Shoto awed. You don't think it's scary? Wouldn't seeing that as scary be calling my left half scary? Shoto asked. No, Izuku said as he flayed his arms in a cartoonish way. Your quirk is great, both parts. So then that means your quirk isn't scary since it's like mine, my dad and big brother, Shoto fired back. Izuku tried to argue back the best way a 6-year-old can. But he had nothing, no words, no reaction. Shoto had a point. But yet how could someone he only met today see more than just a quirk or an extension of his dad? But yet people he knew for years, his best friend, his own mother, never could get away from he's a devil like his monster of a father. What did I tell you, Deku? You can't be a hero. You're just a villain that I'll take down when I become the #1 hero. Don't you dare come near. You're the reason I went through hell, you bstrd. Izuku could feel the darkness seeping in, all the things people said. It was getting louder and louder and louder till it felt like they were screaming. But all of a sudden, it stopped. All Izuku could feel is someone patting his head. Looking up, he saw Shoto sitting on his bed as he patted his hair, all the time smiling. You know, I want to be a hero just like my dad. I bet if we work together, we can easily become the best heroes in the world. Shoto cheered. Instead though of getting a verbal response as he expected, Izuku grabbed Shoto by the shoulders and hugged the young dual-haired boy. Shoto returned the hug with equal affection. The next morning Rei defiantly got an adorable sight when she went to go wake the boys for breakfast. Both Shoto and Izuku asleep in the same bed, the funniest part being how they switched between hugging and fighting over the bedsheet every few minutes. First update of the new year and it's good endeavor. Who'd have thought? Nah, but I hoped everyone had a fantastic holiday and new year. Well, sadly nothing much for this so I hope you have a great day and let's hope Izuku here gets all the love he deserves. Only time and myself know the answer to that question though. XD chapter text. It had been a week since Izuku had arrived at the Todoroki household. He seemed to have gotten a little more comfortable around the family, but he would typically sticking closer to Enji when he was home. He wasn't as jumpy as when he first arrived, and somehow Fuyumi had been allowed to hug him, but something about Izuku made Rei worry. In the last couple of days, she noticed Izuku seemed to have less energy than he should and acted more like a zombie. Especially after he walked into Tuya last night and didn't even seem to recognize it. Rei was in the middle of fixing up a bit of lunch for herself and Izuku, seeing as Enji was at work and the kids were at school. After finishing their lunch, Rei found Izuku on the couch watching TV, but when Rei called Izuku over, he didn't even respond. Walking over, she saw that Izuku had completely spaced out. She crouched in front of him and tried to get his attention. After that failed, though, she carefully grabbed Izuku's shoulder and gave him a light shake. This got Izuku's attention. Rei, what's going on? Izuku mumbled. Izuku, sweetie, are you doing okay? Rei asked, her worry clearly on display for the 6-year-old in front of her. I am okay, Izuku replied. Izuku, please don't lie to me. A second ago, you weren't responding to me at all, and you look a mess. True to her words, Izuku looked almost like a zombie. His skin tone was paler than usual, and Rei noticed bags had started forming under his eyes. Please, I want to help but I can't if you don't tell me what's wrong, Rei pleaded. Rei, I'm okay. Seeing Izuku was refusing to cooperate, Rei decided to at least get Izuku his lunch, but as she moved away, her hand brushed against Izuku's leg. Immediately she noticed how warm the limb was. Her maternal instincts kicking in almost instantly, she dashed to the kitchen and grabbed the first aid kit. Returning to the living room, she pulled about the thermometer and checked Izuku's temperature. After waiting the necessary amount of time, she looked at the reading and was left confused. Izuku's temperature was normal. If he's not sick, then why are his legs burning up? It can't be from exercising, he's still a child, what could it? And like a bolt of lightning went off in Rei's head. She remembered what Enji had told her about Izuku's quirk and how it solely affected his lower body, unlike other fire quirks where it either affect their hands or their whole body. Izuku, is your quirk making it difficult for you to sleep or something? Rei asked. Izuku visibly flinched at her question. That was enough of a response for Rei to know something was wrong. Izuku, sweetie, no one is going to get mad at you if your quirk is acting up or making you uncomfortable. So please tell me what's wrong, Rei pleaded for a second time. When Izuku looked to her, though, instead of the look of disgust or indifference that he was used to, he saw what to him seemed like genuine concern and worry in Rei's eyes. She was actually concerned for his health and well-being. My quirk, it makes my legs really warm, and that makes it difficult to sleep, Izuku mumbled, as he averted his gaze from Rei. Wait, if that's the case, why are you only now showing the lack of sleep? In the hospital, I kept the window open to keep me cool, but I didn't want to make Shoto uncomfortable in his room, so I tried to work through it. Oh, Izuku, that's sweet that you care that much, but what you did was very dangerous. If you don't get enough sleep, you'll end up hurting yourself in a lot of ways, and we don't want that, do we? Izuku shook his head at Rei. Good, besides I'm sure Shoto wouldn't have a problem with the room being a little colder for you if it helped you sleep. I'm sorry I made you worry, Rei. Izuku, it's my job to worry. Now, how about you go for a nap and don't worry, I know how to deal with your quirk. Izuku, curious to see what Rei's idea was, watched as she took the space next to him on the couch. She pulled him closer, and suddenly Izuku could feel his legs starting to cool down. Looking to set appendages, he saw Rei was using her ice quirk to keep his legs from overheating. Izuku found it rather soothing. It wasn't long till Izuku was curled up next to Rei, fast asleep. But her smile turned into a frown as she watched Izuku sleep soundly. I hope Enji makes sure whoever abused Izuku get what they deserve. Otherwise, I'll deal with them myself. Endeavor wasn't enjoying what today had in store, none whatsoever. The day after Izuku moved in, Endeavor had started investigating Izuku's school. He wasn't planning on Izuku going back anyway but wanted to make sure anyone who had abused him or ignored his pleas for help got what they deserved. Currently, Endeavor was watching one of Izuku's teachers being interrogated by Tsukachi, a detective All Might had recommended to Endeavor a long time ago. Frankly, he didn't know why All Might had such a high opinion on him. Maybe it was his skill, or he had a quirk that helped him. The intercom was on. Endeavor wanted to hear what they thought on the boy he and his family had grown fond of. So how would you describe Izuku Midoriya? Tsukachi's voice coming through the intercom. The teacher groaned at the mention of Izuku name. The little monster was always a problem, always starting fights with other students and acting like we were beneath him, the teacher sneered. I'm glad he's gone, it's easier to teach the students that want to learn. So you're saying you never noticed signs that his mother was abusing him? Tsukachi asked, keeping a certain level of professionalism with the teacher. Never, the teacher replied. The rest of the interviews were the same. The teacher would say Izuku was a little monster that would cause issues with the class, and when asked if they noticed any signs of abuse or bullying in any form, they all said no. It wasn't till Tsukachi was finished with the final interview that Endeavor realized he had melted the armrest of his seat, in a subconscious show of anger. The teacher's description of Izuku was clearly a lie. He knew he had only known Izuku for over a month, but none of what the teacher said matched the Izuku Endeavor knew. It was then Tsukachi walked into the viewing room. He let out a sign as he adjusted his hat. Endeavor wondered how the man seemed to walk around in a full trench coat, without passing out from heat exhaustion, especially when around him. Well, I can tell without a doubt that those teachers were lying through their teeth, Tsukachi stated as he took the free seat next to Endeavor. I had my suspicions. Everything they said sounded nothing like the Izuku I know. But how could you tell? You haven't met Izuku? Endeavor asked, curious how the detective saw through the teacher's lies. Easy, thanks to my quirk, I'm the equivalent to a lie detector. Everything they said, my quirk confirmed to be a clear lie. Besides, my bullshit meter was off the charts on some of those descriptions, Tsukachi chuckling near the end of his sentence. Still, Izuku was likely getting bullied at school, and the teachers are covering it up. Pretty sure with what we got from the interviews and the evidence, I can call the teachers back and see which crack under pressure and start telling us the truth. Endeavor now understood why All Might recommend Tsukachi so highly. It was clear he was determined to get to the bottom of the cases he was working on. I'll call the teachers. Why is your chair half melted, Endeavor? Tsukachi asked, perplexed. Endeavor bowed his head slightly, avoiding eye contact with the detective. Mumbling, he'll replace the chair. It had taken them all day, but Tsukachi and Endeavor were able to make one of the teachers crack. Endeavor chuckled, remembering how quickly the teacher turned pale when Tsukachi told the man what his quirk did. Soon the rest of the teachers followed their peers, revealing how Izuku was the class's punching bag. How they let the students do whatever they wanted to Izuku and never interfere. Apparently, one student had gone out of his way to rally the class in bullying Izuku, especially when his quirk was found out. Endeavor was late home, thanks to this, but was surprised when Ray didn't greet him at the door. Curious, Endeavor headed into the living room and found what he could only describe as something genuinely adorable. Ray was sitting on the couch, on her right was Izuku sleeping soundly while cuddling into her side. While on her left side, Shoto was doing the same thing as Izuku. Ray, in the middle of this little hug pile, wore a massive grin as she soothed the two sleeping kids. "Someone's in a good mood," Endeavor said, drawing Ray's attention from the two kids. "The best mood," she whispered, trying not to wake up the boys. "So, what started this?" As Endeavor asked this question, Ray lost her smile and changed to a look of concern. "Izuku. You know how he's been almost like a zombie lately." Endeavor nodded. "Well, turns out his quirk was making it difficult for him to sleep, it was too warm for him. And he didn't want to make Shoto uncomfortable, so he tried to work through it, and you saw the results. So you made him take a nap. Why am I not surprised?" Endeavor chuckling, not surprised Ray had done this. Hell, he remembered plenty of times she did that with him, when he was, according to her, working too hard. Granted, she usually cheated throughout the years, normally by using one of the kids to get at his heartstrings. So that explains Izuku. But how does Shoto fit into this? That actually is the funny one, Ray giggled. He got a little jealous of Izuku getting all my hugs, so after dinner, he asked to join in. I couldn't say no to him. Yeep, that defiantly sounds like Shoto. So I take it you're stuck? I could move. But they're too cute like this. Ray was indeed caught between a rock and a hard place now, or more accurately, she was stuck between two adorable hero lovers. Seeing Ray wouldn't be able to make it to bed, Endeavor grabbed a spare blanket from his room and draped it over the Ray and the boys, making sure they were comfortable before heading to his own bed, but not before kissing Ray on the forehead. To be frank, I was surprised how quickly I got this chapter done. It was mainly thanks to a friend the other day, who got me excited to write. Overall, I loved writing Best Mum Ray. She's so sweet, I can't wait to do more with her. Also, before I go, I like to thank the friend who got me excited to write. How did they do it, I hear you ask? With this? The fact I got fan art makes me so happy. Anyway, I hope you all have a great day. See ya. Izuku and Shoto were excited, Shoto showing it much more than Izuku. Ray had told them that Izuku's room had been finished. The pair were upset they no longer be sharing a room, but Shoto says they could do their own sleepovers. After having breakfast, the boys followed Ray to where Izuku's new room was located. It was a few doors down from Shoto's room. Ray told Izuku that Tuya's room was next to his, in case he ever needed to find him. Opening the door, the boys could see that Izuku's room was almost completely different from Shoto's room. While Shoto's room had a traditional Japanese feel, Izuku's was more modern. The room has been painted that the far side wall and wall that held the door were painted a cream color and the two remaining walls were painted the same shade of green as Izuku's dark green hair. Izuku's room seemed to have everything: shelves with a few pro-hero figures already on display, a moderately sized closet, a computer desk, but Ray told them not to expect a computer anytime soon, mostly to protect the kids from the weirdos found online. But what got Izuku's attention the most was the bed located across from the computer desk. To the 6-year-old it looked huge and so comfy. He then felt Shoto started to pull him to the bed. The pair climbed onto the bed, only to find they were trapped. "It's so soft," Shoto ummed, feeling so relaxed. True, he preferred his futon, but beds defiantly had their advantages. "It's almost like a cloud," Izuku chuckled. This easily outranked any bed he had before. He then noticed Shoto getting up and standing on the bed. The heterochromatic soon started jumping on the bed. "Come on, Izuku, jump. It's really fun." Shoto cheered as he continued to jump on Izuku's bed. "Alright," Izuku said. He soon joined in with Shoto and his jumping. The pair started to laugh together. "Hold it!" Ray shouted, catching the boys off guard, making them stop their jumping. Shoto tilted his head in confusion at his mother's raised voice. Izuku, however, started to shake like a scared little kitten, scared he may have made Ray upset with his actions. He had experience with this when he made Inko upset on multiple occasions. Ray walked over to the boys and grabbed the pillows from Izuku's bed, placing them on the floor, close to the bed. "Now, don't jump too high now, alright?" Shoto nodded his head at his mother's request. The mother was clearly only worried about the kids' safety. Izuku stood there, surprised at how much Ray cared for them, the concept of a caring mother, still foreign to the young boy. "Your mom is so sweet, Shoto," Izuku said after Ray left the room. "I know she's the best mom in the world." Shoto proclaimed, pumping his fist into the air as if to prove a point. After a few more minutes of jumping on the bed, the kids started exploring the room further. The biggest surprise was when they found a box labeled for Izuku. Looking inside the box, the boys found it was full of hero nightlights. Likely Rei had mentioned to Enji about Izuku's fear of the dark, and he went out to buy them. The kids continued to play in Izuku's room for another hour, Izuku, happy the entire time. After playing in his new room for a while with Shoto, Izuku decided to go outside. He was surprised to find Natsuo alone in the garden. The white-haired boy was currently bouncing the ball off his foot while making sure not to let it hit the ground. Izuku had been told that this was called keepy-uppy. Izuku watched as Natsuo worked on his keepy-uppy skills. Natsuo stopped once he saw Izuku was watching him. "Hey, Izuku, you want to play some football?" Natsuo asked. "No thanks, I prefer to watch," Izuku replied. "Oh come on, I can show you all my tricks, bet it'll impress girls," Natsuo chuckled, winking at Izuku at the last part, like he wasn't trying to raise any suspicion, only to make him look more suspicious. "Why would I want to impress girls?" Izuku innocently asked. "Oh Izuku, you'll understand when you're older," Natsuo laughed. "But aren't you only older than me by 3 years?" Izuku commented. Ignoring Izuku's wisecrack, Natsuo started showing Izuku how to play keepy-uppy, making sure to emphasize to be careful with how much force he puts into his kicks, saying that's just asking for trouble. After giving his demonstration, Natsuo handed Izuku the ball. Once getting the ball, Izuku tried copying Natsuo's movements with the ball. He was able to get 3 continuous kicks until he missed on the 4th. He was surprised when he saw Natsuo clapping at his attempt. "Nice job Izuku," Natsuo cheered. "But, I only got 3. You were able to do 10" Izuku whimpered. "You did better than when Tuya tried to teach Shoto. He just kicked the ball way too hard. He ended up hitting Dad in the face with the ball." Natsuo started to laugh hard. "Remember that little moment?" "That does sound funny," Izuku giggled. The pair continued to play keepy-uppy with each other. Izuku was able to get his score up to 7, while Natsuo got up to 20. After doing this for a bit, Natsuo wanted to show Izuku how high he could kick his ball. The white-haired Todoroki threw the ball into the air, and just as it was about to hit the ground, he kicked the ball. Unfortunately, when Natsuo kicked the ball, he ended up kicking at the wrong angle, send the ball over to the neighbor's house. The two kids heard a window smash. Just after losing sight of the ball, Natsuo and Izuku visibly gulped at what had just happened. "Ugh. Okay Izuku. New lesson, what to do when you break a window with your football," Natsuo stuttered as he tried to regain his composure. "Tell Rei and apologize?" Izuku asked. "No, act like you weren't playing football because you lost your ball." After beating a hasty retreat and splitting off from Natsuo, Izuku hid himself for a short while until a factor of his personality that his adopted siblings would grow to loathe, though admittance of that fact would never leave their lips. His conscience ironically strengthened through his traumatic past made him seek out Rei to admit his wrongdoing. It wasn't a long search as he found her sitting on her lonesome reading through the contents of the book appeared to be odd as he saw her expression some sort of odd middle ground between fondness and sadness. His fear of punishment and verbal scolding pushed back a little to try and find the reason for her confusing look. "Rei, are you okay?" Izuku asked, startling Rei having to been too focused on the book she had in her hand. "Oh, Izuku, you scared me for a second." "Sorry Rei, I didn't mean to scare you." "Oh, Izuku, it's all right. I just got distracted," Rei said, motioning to Izuku the book in her hand. "What are you reading?" he asked. "Oh, it's just the family photo album, or to be more precise, one of them." "How many do you have?" Izuku asked, his curiosity getting the better of him. "A few, but I have a feeling that we'll be making more in the future." Rei chuckled back. It was here Izuku pulled himself up onto the couch to look at the photo album, Rei happy to show him. Izuku sat down next to Rei and started looking through the photo album. "Rei, why are you in a UA uniform with Tuya?" Izuku asked as he pointed to a picture that had what seemed to be Rei and Tuya outside UA front gate, both wearing the school uniform. The second that sentence left Izuku's mouth, Rei burst out in laughter. She grabbed her stomach as she almost keeled over in a fit of laughter, leaving Izuku confused to no end. "Ha ha 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 ha, oh, izuku, thats not," Rei gasped, her laughter making it near impossible for her to speak. "Thats, Enji, and not, Tuya, ha 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 ha." Really, Wo Endeavor and Tuya almost looked the same. Izuku awed at the similarities between the father and son. This earned another chuckle from Rei, who had been able to stop her fit of laughter. "I wouldn't say that around Tuya, not saying he hates his father. He just hates always being compared to him or reminded he's just like him. I think he once talked about dyeing his hair black just to stop the comparisons." Rei continued to show Izuku more photos, From her time in UA in General Ed course while Enji was in the Hero course, to the couple just after getting married, the album ended with pictures of baby Tuya and Fuyumi. Izuku laughing at a picture of Enji carrying the pair on his shoulders and how it seemed the pair had dropped their ice cream cones on Enji's head. Izuku could see Rei in the corner of the picture laughing her head off. "Rei, are there any pictures of you and Endeavor before UA, like when you were babies?" Izuku asked, curious at what a baby Rei and Endeavor looked like. Sadly, all his 6-year-old mind could see is the two adults with the same face but having the bodies of babies. But when Izuku looked to Rei, he saw her expression had changed from happy and cheerful as he would usually see her, to saddened and disheartened. For a moment, he swore he saw her have a faint tremble as if fear was gripping at her faintly. Izuku tried to reach out to her in a means to remind her she was okay or, at the very least, she wasn't alone. But when his hand touched her arm, Rei spun around and glared at Izuku, her eyes filled with fear, sadness, and a hint of hatred. They looked almost identical to his mother's, the day he got his quirk and the day she started abusing him. Fear gripped Izuku's heart. He recalled the lost football and felt a dread pit in his stomach. He wanted to tell her, but fear of her punishment caused him to hesitate. What would she do? Freeze him in place? Just his hair to make him feel how much of a burden he was? Throw him to the streets? That seemed the most likely in his mind. He wasn't her blood child, and his own mother had locked him out on numerous occasions, only keeping him because of blood-connected obligation. Rei had none of those obligations. Following his first instinct, Izuku tried to protect himself. Using his arms, he covered his head, letting out a yelp as he did so. Hearing Izuku's yelp, Rei's mind finally caught up with her, after memories of her past clouded her vision. She saw Izuku trembling in front of her as he was doing his best to protect himself. "Oh God, Izuku, I'm so sorry," Rei wailed as tried to hug the scared little boy. "It's my fault," Izuku whimpered. "No. It isn't, Izuku. It's mine, and don't you dare try and correct me on this. I got caught up in sour memories and lost my temper," Rei fired back as she continued to hug Izuku. Gratefully, it seemed to show Izuku that Rei wasn't going to harm him. The pair sat in silence for a while until Izuku regained a bit of courage. "Rei, I did something bad." "It's okay, sweetie. I'm sure it's nothing too serious. So what happened?" "Me and Natsuo. We were playing with the football in the garden. Then I kicked the ball too hard. It flew over the fence and into the neighbor's garden. I think I broke their window," Izuku said, deciding he'd rather take the punishment than let Natsuo get in trouble. Rei just continued to brush her hand through Izuku's curly hair, something she found that calmed her. "Okay, Izuku, thank you for telling me," Rei replied but let out a faint chuckle. "Can say you're defiantly a lot braver than Natsuo or Tuya. Whenever they broke something, they just hide it or say they had nothing to do with it." Rei chuckled again as she kissed Izuku's forehead. Izuku seemed to like this as Rei could see him smiling again. "Rei, did someone hurt you too?" Izuku asked, curious at what could have made the sweetest person he knew so scary and afraid. "Izuku. Let's just say, I know a thing or two about pain. Not just physically." Just as Rei finished her sentence, she was caught off guard when Izuku hugged her back. Rei smiled at Izuku, and the pair continued their little hugfest. After Izuku and Rei finished their hug, Rei gave what only be described as the sweetest scolding a mother could give, telling Izuku to be more careful in the future whenever he plays with a football. Afterward, she left to go handle the neighbor. Now Izuku was by himself again. "There you are, Izuku." Or so he thought. Fuyumi came up Izuku, the preteen smiling like always. "I heard your room is finally done. How's it feel not needing to bunk with Shoto anymore?" "Fuyumi, what's that?" Izuku asked, pointing to Fuyumi's hand, ignoring her question. In Fuyumi's right hand was a round white sphere. It looked familiar to Izuku, but he couldn't put his finger on where he had seen it before. "Oh, this is a snowball. I made it with my quirk," Fuyumi said, gesturing to snowball in her hand. "I just love making these things. Heck, I'm basically a walking snow day if I want to be." "What's a snow day?" "What? Izuku, you have to know what a snow day is." Izuku just shook his head at Fuyumi, who just pouted at Izuku. "Come on, they're days in winter, where the snow makes the school shut, and you get to spend all day in the snow and make great memories. I never got that. Anytime it snowed, nothing good happened. I swear if I ever meet the people who bullied this angel, there won't be anything left." Fuyumi thought, a part of her wishing she could be left in a room with those monsters to teach them a lesson. "Well, we can't have that then. You go get Shoto and come meet me in the back garden." Doing as Fuyumi said, Izuku went looking for Shoto. It didn't take long to find him. Izuku told Shoto that Fuyumi wanted both of them in the garden right now. The pair made their way to the back garden, finding Fuyumi on the edge of the decking. Izuku asked why Fuyumi wanted them to come to the back garden. Fuyumi just giggled at him and raised her arms. Suddenly there was a blizzard coming out of her hands. What you think, Izuku? Tuya isn't the only one with a variation of their parents' quirk. That's so cool. Izuku screamed with excitement, not only at finally seeing Fuyumi quirk but at what she was doing with it. Soon the entire back garden was covered in a layer of snow, Fuyumi making sure it was just enough so she, Shoto, and Izuku can have some fun. She looked over to the pair of 6-year-olds and saw the pair had stars in their eye with excitement. She knew Shoto loved her quirk and was happy to see Izuku seem to love it as well. Shoto was off like a rocket and started to try and build a snowman, emphasis on try. Izuku, on the other hand, seemed reluctant to join in, sticking to her plan to give Izuku a good memory in the snow. Fuyumi decides instead of telling Izuku he was safe, she show him. Fuyumi jumped off the decking and ran through the snow, cheering the whole time. Just as she passed Shoto, she grabbed her little brother to join in the fun until Fuyumi tripped and fell into the snow. This didn't stop her laughter nor Shoto's as the two made the best of the situation and started to make snow angels. Come on, Izuku. You're missing out on all the fun. Fuyumi cheered. Izuku watched as the pair continued to enjoy themselves in the snow, fear making him hold back from joining in. But he wanted to join in so badly, but anytime he tried to join in when his classmates had played in the snow, it usually resulted in him being pelted with snow and ice ball or getting buried. Fighting against his fear, Izuku slowly took a step off the decking and into the snow. He heard the snow being flattened under his shoe as he stepped into the garden, soon his other foot followed and finally he was in Fuyumi's winter wonderland. Izuku heard Fuyumi cheer at Izuku, deciding to join in and called him over to make snow angels, saying she reserved a spot just for him. Izuku felt there was no hidden meaning or Fuyumi was tricking him. He slowly walked over to see Shoto and Fuyumi completed snow angels. Fuyumi took it upon herself to show Izuku how to make a snow angel. She figured it as easy since, to her, he was already an angel. And lo and behold, Izuku made a perfect snow angel on his first attempt. Fuyumi and Shoto cheered at Izuku's success and proceeded to hug the little greeneat, something he enjoyed very much. After the hug, the three started to build their snowmen, Fuyumi opting to help Izuku make one while Shoto continued with the one he started earlier. The pair had just finished making the head when Izuku asked Fuyumi a question. Fuyumi, how did you learn about your quirk? Fuyumi looked rather confused at the wording of his question. You mean, how did I learn what my quirk was? Fuyumi asked. Izuku nodded. Well, that's actually rather funny. When I was 4 I caught a cold. I was in bed for a week until one day I sneezed and suddenly it looked like a blizzard had just gone through the house. Oh man, it was hilarious. My mom was jumping for joy that I had a quirk like hers and my dad ended up catching a cold thanks to me. Fuyumi laughed at the memory and how funny it was to see the number 2 hero stuck in bed with a cold. Izuku let out a few giggles. You're right, that is funny. Fuyumi smiled, watching as Izuku continues to laugh as they finished the snowman. She was happy her plan was going well. Thump, she felt something cold hit the back of her head. Whipping her head around, she saw Shoto whistling innocently. Smirking, she makes a couple of snowballs and throws them at her little brother, getting him a couple of times. The pair start to throw snowballs wildly, not caring if they hit or not. Out of nowhere though, the pair got a face full of snow. Looking to where it came from, they saw Izuku with a pile of snowballs as he let loose. The three spent the next hour throwing snowballs around. Afterwards, Fuyumi made the three of them some nice hot chocolate as they relaxed in the living room. Fuyumi, thank you for today. I really loved playing in the snow with you, and your quirk is amazing, Izuku said into his mug as he took another sip of his hot chocolate. Fuyumi smiled and patted Izuku's head. After Enji had gotten home from his last patrol, he decided to watch TV after dinner, and Izuku had come up to ask if he could change the channel to watch something. Enji saw no harm in that. Endeavor had learned in the last 16 years of parenthood that not every child was the same. Granted, still didn't prepare him when Izuku turned on the news. Instead of most kids that preferred to watch cartoons, Izuku loved watching the news. Hearing about all the people saved by heroes and criminals caught by them, he especially loved when one of All Might's or Endeavor's stories came up. The pair sat mostly in silence with a few words being exchanged here and there. What's that noise? Enji asked, looking around the room, thinking the heating was playing up again until his eyes locked onto Izuku, who seemed to be mumbling. From what he was able to pick up from the mumbling storm, Enji could swear it sounded like Izuku was talking about a hero who had just been on the news and how he used his quirk. Enji let the boy be with his mumbling till, at one point, he swears he saw letters coming out of the boy's mouth. Deciding he had heard enough, Enji spoke up. Izuku, are you okay? Getting pulled out of his thought process, Izuku looked to Endeavor and realized what he did. I was mumbling again, wasn't I? Izuku asked meekly. Endeavor nodded back. Oh, sorry if it was annoying. It's no problem, Izuku, but I want to ask, were you breaking down that hero's quirk and how they use it? Izuku nodded his head in response. I always loved quirks, I love to break them down and find weaknesses and how you can use them better, Izuku said, the excitement clear in his tone. Enji had to remember that. My, that's new, why didn't you tell me when you were cooped up in the hospital, Enji asked. 'Cause, people said it was weird, and some said it was creepy. And yet another reason he was bullied. Endeavor wondered if that was the only thing his classmates done. Oh, well, they were probably scared of you. Wait, what? Izuku screeched in response. No, not like what you're thinking. More in the way of, with the right training, you could break down their entire quirk, flaws and all, in a minute and come up with a strategy to defeat them. The media may make it look like the one with the strongest flashiest quirk will become a top hero, but there's more to it than that, Endeavor explained, clearly gaining Izuku's full attention from how he looked at him. Really? Yeah, like take this, for example, look at the hero Crimson Riot. His quirk only allows him to harden his hair, so he came with a few strategies and ideas, like having his hair styled at the front to look like a spear. He then came up with ways he can use what little his quirk can do to his advantage. Crimson Riot sounds so cool, Izuku mumbled. Looks like Endeavor had given Izuku another favorite hero. So how was your day then, do anything fun? He asked. Oh, today was great, me and Shoto played in my room, then Natsuo taught me how to play football. Then Ray showed me pictures of when you two were dating, haha you look just like Tuya, Endeavor smirked at Izuku's comparison. It still made him laugh remembering Tuya planned to dye his hair black, only not to do it cause Shoto asked him not to. Oh, and Fuyumi went whoosh, and then the back garden was covered in snow, and then we had hot chocolate. Lucky, you get the whole day to play around while I'm stuck dealing with idiots who think they can do what they want because they have a strong quirk, Endeavor complained at the continuous cycle of overly egotistical assholes. What was their quirk? Was it strong? Was it an emitter or mutation type? Izuku asked out of nowhere, catching the number 2 hero off guard. Well, his quirk, I would say, was strong. It allowed him to control the garbage within a certain radius of himself. It especially is strong in a city. Did he have a garbage truck? Izuku asked again. What? Endeavor replied, being caught off guard once again by the sudden question. If he had a full garbage truck, I bet he would have been way stronger, or maybe if he went to a dump before attacking or even the beach near my old school, that's almost like a dump. Endeavor chuckled, hearing Izuku's statement. No, he didn't have a garbage truck, granted if he did, and hit me with it. I can assure you I wouldn't be here, Endeavor stated. Izuku gasped once hearing this. You saying he was that strong? What, no. I mean if he did that, I'd currently be outside, since Ray wouldn't let me into the house if I smelled like a garbage truck, she would probably be hosing me down. The pair chuckled at that idea and continued to talk more about the villains Endeavor has taken on lately, with Izuku either commenting on how well they used their quirk or how they misused it. After a while, Izuku seemed to lose the energy he had before Endeavor could ask what was wrong. Izuku spoke. Endeavor, can I show you something? Endeavor nodded, and as he did that, Izuku bolted out of the room in a hurry, only to return a moment later with a notebook. What's this? Endeavor asked. It's my quirk notebook, Izuku mumbled, taking the notebook from Izuku. Endeavor skimmed through the book. It was clear it was done by a 6-year-old, poor penmanship and drawings, but Endeavor could see the heart and effort put into each page. How Izuku seemed to try and improve his analyzing and breakdowns. Enji smiled when he found a whole page dedicated to each member of his family, all of them drawn with big smiles. Ray's drawing was the funniest, with the drawing of Ray having a pair of wings. Almost like he was trying to say Ray was angelic, something Enji could defiantly agree on. I have to say, this is impressive, Izuku. I'm surprised though you don't have more quirks written down in here, Enji said as he continued to look through the notebook. Well, I had one before you saved me, but my mom got rid of it. She said that's what a villain does, keeping a book on how to beat up heroes. Well, just makes her more of an idiot than I thought, Enji commented. With this kind of info, you can help other heroes get better or help take down a villain who has a rare quirk or info on their quirk has been lost or forgotten. Looking back to Izuku, Enji could see the stars in Izuku's eyes at him praising his hobby. After that, Enji helped Izuku fill in a few more pages of his notebook with some of Endeavor's sidekicks and make a few adjustments to his notes on his, Shoto's, and Tuya's quirks. But soon Enji could see Izuku starting to doze off. Seemingly today had taken a lot out of the boy, and as if on cue, Ray appeared in the living room doorframe. Guess it's time for someone's bedtime, Ray cooed as she walked up to Izuku. But, I'm not sleepy, Izuku yawned as he rubbed the sleep from his eyes. Rei and Enji both chuckled at this. Sorry Izuku, but I think your body has other plans, Rei laughed as she lifted Izuku off the couch. Besides, you get a big comfy and very bouncy bed to yourself, while I got to share it with Mr. Snores all night here. Izuku giggled at Rei dig at Enji, who was now scowling at his wife. Izuku said goodnight to Enji as Rei carried him off to his bed, leaving Enji alone with Izuku's quirk notebook as he wrote down a few bits of advice for Izuku when breaking down quirks. He knew he wasn't going to let Izuku's talent go to waste. Izuku didn't know what was going on. One minute he was being tucked into bed by Rei, only to suddenly find himself in a black void that seemed to stretch farther than the eye could see. Was he dreaming? Did a villain kidnap him? Izuku started running through the void, desperate to find a way out. He ran. He kept running until it felt like his lungs were about to explode. Stopping to catch his breath, Izuku started to feel his fear grip his heart like it was in a vice. The void truly seemed endless now. Izuku felt like he had ran for miles, but everything was the same, a truly empty dark void. Endeavor. Shoto. Rei. Anyone? Izuku screamed into the dark void, only hearing his pleas echo until they faded into nothingness. What the hell you doing, Deku? A familiar voice called out from behind Izuku. Turning around, Izuku found himself face to face with one of his tormentors, Bakugo Katsuki. Izuku's tormentor was smiling, but not one of genuine joy, but like when a predator had finally cornered its prey. No one's going to help villain like you, so why bother calling for help? Bakugo started setting tiny explosions in his hands, just like he always did just before beat Izuku to a pulp. Not wanting to give the bully a chance, Izuku ran in the opposite direction of Bakugo, but just as he got a few meters away from him, suddenly Izuku was covered in a green aura and started to levitate off the ground. Before he could figure what was going on, he flew back in the direction of Bakugo and was met with one of Bakugo's explosions, right to the face. The blast sent Izuku flying back, crashing into the ground several times before sliding to a halt. Izuku tried to pull himself up, but his body felt too broken at that moment to even move. He tried to call out for help, but all that came out please barely any louder than a whisper. You really think someone is going to help you? Bakugo mocked as he got closer to Izuku. You're nothing but a villain who doesn't even deserve to breathe the same air as me. I am, no, villain, Izuku whimpered. Bakugo laughed at Izuku's rebuttal. Yeah, if you're not a villain, then explain that. Looking to Bakugo, Izuku saw what he was meaning. His legs were on fire, more specifically his green fire. Izuku pushed himself over into the upright position and quickly tried to pat the fire out. But when he tried to, his hands passed right through the flames, like there was nothing underneath. He kept trying to pat the fire out, but this only served to fuel the fire even more. Izuku tried to stand up but fell onto his face like he literally had no legs to stand on. Soon the fire surrounded Izuku, but before the flames could engulf the young boy, they suddenly moved towards Bakugo. Izuku tried to warn Bakugo to move, but it was too late. The flames engulfed him. But instead of seeing Bakugo burn to death in the flames, he saw Bakugo start to grow in size. Just as the figure in the flames reached the size of an adult, the green flames suddenly become more docile. Then the figure stepped out of the flames. The figure wore a black sleeveless shirt, accompanied with a red leather vest that he wore over the shirt, a pair of worn blue jeans with a few holes burned into them, the figure's clothing being capped off with a pair of red combat boots. Looking up, Izuku saw the figure had hair as black as smoke, a light dusting of freckles across both his cheeks. But his eyes, his cold, soulless eyes, once Izuku saw them, he knew who he was covering in front of. His, Sias, sure. Izuku trembled the name of his father out, fear holding him greater than ever before. Hisashi looked down to see Izuku tremble before him. Well. Long time no see kiddo, Hisashi smirked. He laughed as he saw Izuku try to get up only to remember that he had literally not a leg to stand on. Come on now. You think I'm going to hurt you? I mean you and I are the same after all. And no, I'm not Liku you. Really, kid? Hisashi asked with a scowl, you have the same fire as me. We look the same, and besides, I know that deep inside that golden heart of yours that believes in heroes will save everyone with a smile. There's a trickle of darkness in there that I know you that wants to make everyone suffer for mistreating ever since you got your quirk, am I wrong? You are. It's not true. Izuku screamed back at Hisashi. Is it not? Really? Spoken with a smile more familiar than Izuku ever wished it would be. He thought back to the teachers supposed to be caring, the classmates offering to play, and even his mother pretending she was truly going to look after him. Funny, not so quick to shoot back the second time? Raph. The boy taking no more lunged forward to. What? Fight? Run past him? Embrace the only person who hadn't turned on him even if only through not being there to do so? Whatever course of action he was about to try, Hisashi didn't let him, and with a quick blast, Izuku found himself with burnt, blackened stumps from his shoulders to match his now reduced to unusable flames for legs. "Ah, Izuku, look what you made me do. Don't worry, though. I know someone who will patch you up and make you more like me." But just as Hisashi was about to grab Izuku by the collar, Izuku suddenly felt something grab him from behind and pulled him into the void. Izuku watched as he slipped further into the darkness as Hisashi pounded on the barrier between them, screaming, "You can't run forever, ever little Izu, I'll always come back, act.ck. And one day I will have you. Aveu.u.ou." Hisashi voice echoed as Izuku continued further into the void, till the screams of his father faded into nothingness. "Izuku, calm down. It's just a nightmare," Tuya shouted as he shook Izuku awake. "Oua." Izuku whimpered as he woke up. Tuya sighed in relief. "Thank God, I heard you screaming and thought something happened." "It's okay, Izuku, you just had a nightmare." Before Tuya could finish his sentence, Izuku almost tackled into him, gripping his t-shirt. Soon Tuya could hear Izuku crying as he started feeling his tears soak through his shirt. "Yeah, ai, shou, bbok, go, is, sahi," Izuku blubbered as he continued to cry into Tuya's shirt. Through all the crying, blubbering, and snot, Tuya was able to figure out Izuku's nightmare seemed to have thrown his primary bully at him with no way to flee, and that near the end his father had shown up. Tuya pulled Izuku into a tight hug and started to rub circles on Izuku's back, to try and calm the kid down a bit. Tuya continued to soothe Izuku for the next hour. Thankfully it seemed to have an effect as Izuku stopped crying, or the kid had run out of tears to shed. "Don't worry Izuku, none of those guys will hurt you ever again." "Why you mean it?" Izuku asked, hiccuping due to his crying. "Yeah, they'll have to get through us, and I'm pretty sure they wouldn't be able to get past my mom or dad," Tuya chuckled back, still holding Izuku close. "Tuya, I'm scared, can I stay in your room?" "Sure, little guy, I told you, any issues come and get me." Picking Izuku up, Tuya walked back to his room, but not before grabbing one of Izuku's nightlights. Getting back to his room, Tuya tucked Izuku into his bed and set up the nightlight for him. Before getting into the bed himself, he made sure to open his window to keep the room cooled for Izuku. Tuya soon got back under his covers and settled in. "Night Izuku." "Night Tuya, thank you," Izuku whispered as he closed his eyes, soon falling back asleep like nothing had happened. Soon Tuya was fast asleep as well, a smile across his face, happy he had helped the little cinnamon roll again. Okay, I definitely didn't expect this chapter to be this long, but overall I rather enjoyed writing it. I hope you enjoyed all the stuff Izuku did with the family and Hisashi's first appearance in the series. Also got a message the other day asking about ships. Before anyone jumps the gun on this, I have ships already planned out. I just won't be tagging them in this FIC until it's official. Granted, in my new FIC, I might drop that info at the start in the tags. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this chapter and hope to see you again soon. P.S. Before I go, I like to share a bit of fan art I got shortly after the last chapter dropped. "Wee!" exclaimed the freshest face in the Todoroki household in his male caretaker's arm as he almost literally rocketed forward. "But does it count if he doesn't use fuel or an engine?" "Does he use fuel? Maybe his metabolism säsa fuel sorsiltering the strengtho fis flames, heat tuo and wat if hekonsumid certain chemicals, would jet different colorsorgist stomachache, doshis firework inside to cook fodan kilgerms, what abu dash." Izuku, as much as analysis is important, so is observation. "We stopped 5 minutes ago." The forever second hero alerted his newest ward. Izuku looked up to see Endeavor was correct. They had arrived at the Endeavor Hero Agency, the biggest agency in Japan. The other day, Endeavor had asked if Izuku and Shoto would be up to spend the day at his work. Both screamed yes almost immediately after being asked. Granted, seems no one told Shoto, who was currently asleep under his father's arm, that this means he would have to get up super early. Endeavor laughed at how different the two boys were this morning. Izuku wouldn't shut up, and Shoto wouldn't stop drooling in his sleep, which was being affected by his quirk. Endeavor could still see the trail of ice chips that lead from his house to his agency. "Good morning, Endeavor, sir," the receptionist said with a grin. "Good morning, anything happen last night?" Endeavor asked. "Nothing worth writing down, sir, just the usual drunks hanging around." It was then the receptionist saw Endeavor wasn't alone. "Oh, I see you brought young Shoto in, but who's this little guy?" "Hello, I'm Izuku." Izuku introduced himself with a smile, Endeavor happy that Izuku was making some fantastic progress in certain areas. The receptionist let out an ah. It just proved to Endeavor that izuku cuteness is everyone's weakness, or that's how Fuyumi put it. Walking into the main office of his agency, Endeavor received the usual greetings of morning and asking how he is from his sidekicks. He did his best to reply to all of them as he made his way to his private office. Shoto, now having woken up, was walking alongside his dad. While Izuku had taken to sticking close to both Todorokis, the large group of unfamiliar faces, making him feel uneasy. Endeavor's private office was huge. Izuku thought they had walked into a high-class hotel from the decor. Heck, there was even a crystal chandelier. Whoa, this is amazing, Izuku said in wonder at the massive room. Yeah, Dad thought his office should be like this. Tuya says he just wanted to slide his ego, Shoto whispered. The two giggled at Tuya's statement about the room. Okay, you two, enough laughing, we have work to do, Endeavor said, interrupting the two young boys. Oh, are we going to fight villains, or are we going to go on patrol with you? Shoto asked, filled with excitement at the prospect of working with his dad. No, you're too young for that, it's too dangerous for you, Endeavor fired back at his son. No fair. You took Tuya into a fight when he was my age, Shoto fired back while pouting at his father. Endeavor groaned at his son's attitude. That was different. I was out with your brother and got attacked by a villain who had a thing against me. Endeavor replied, not exactly liking that he had to bring that day up, mostly due to how Tuya was in danger and how he then had to calm Rei afterwards. It didn't help at the time. She was more emotional due to her being PRGNNT with Natsuo. So what are we going to do? Please tell me we aren't just going to sit and watch you fill out paperwork. That's so boring, Shoto groaned. Honestly, sitting around doing nothing was a child's most despised thing of them all. Endeavor chuckled at his son's question. Well, I was considering that, but I then thought of something. I want you to help me show Izuku around the agency. Wait, what? Both Izuku and Shoto asked in shock at Endeavor's plan. Well, I thought with Izuku's little gift of being able to break down quirks, I should do my best to improve in the best way I can, and this could help him get more adjusted to handling crowds of unknown people. Not to mention with you there, Shoto, it will help Izuku feel safer, Endeavor said with a smile. Wait, Izuku, you can break down quirks. Does that mean you have a second quirk like me? Shoto asked excitedly, directing his attention to his former roommate. Izuku jumped at the sudden attention he was getting. He had defiantly not expected this when Endeavor offered him a chance to come to his agency. Well, no, I always found quirks cool, and I thought if I could break them down, I will be a better hero, Izuku mumbled. Shoto meanwhile was looking at Izuku in awe. Endeavor chuckled as Shoto started asking Izuku questions about his quirk. But just as he was about to show the boys around, his office phone went off. Hello, yes, this is he. Okay, ugh, fine, send them up in 5 minutes, Endeavor said as he hung up the phone. He let out a groan as he pinched the bridge of his nose. He'd rather not deal with that annoyance today. You okay, Dad? Shoto asked. I'm okay, just got a call from my receptionist. Apparently, someone needs to talk to me about something important. Apparently, it can't wait, Endeavor answered. He knew he didn't want Izuku or Shoto here for this meeting, so he formulated a plan. Okay, change of plans. Shoto, why don't you take Izuku around the agency? You should know it like the back of your hand. While I handle this meeting, afterwards, I'll catch up. Sound good? Shoto responded with a swift nod at his father's request. Looking to Izuku, Endeavor saw Izuku seemed worried, but he looked up to the giant of a man and nodded as well. Good, now you two get out of here and remember, don't leave the building without me. Okay, see ya, Dad, see you later, Endeavor. The boys cheered as they ran out of the private office. After sending Izuku and Shoto away, Endeavor decided to do a bit of paperwork until his surprise guests arrive. It didn't take long until Endeavor heard someone knocking on his door, but before he could answer it, the office door swung open as the number one hero, All Might, burst through the door, posing like he flying into a fight. I am here. Coming through the door like a normal person. All Might shouted in a dramatic tone, making Endeavor groan. That's not how a normal person walks through a door, you fool. Endeavor stated. Hello Endeavor, long time no see, All Might said, seemingly not noticing Endeavor's statement. What are you doing here? Last I checked, there haven't been any big villains of late that would require both of us, and while I get trying to stay friendly with fellow heroes, I have something I'd rather be doing. Endeavor said, it clear that he didn't want to deal with All Might, he would rather spend his time with Shoto and Izuku, at least there he gets a laugh. Now, Endeavor. No need to dash, but as All Might was about to finish his sentence, he was kicked in the back of the head, causing him to tumble out of the doorway. Endeavor quickly rose to his seat, worrying a villain had snuck in. But to his surprise, out from behind All Might appeared a short older man, the first thing Endeavor noticed was he had a short gray beard and a long yellow cape that seemed to drag on the ground a tad. "DMN kids, didn't anyone teach you not to block doorways?" the man said as he scolded All Might. "Ah, yes. I apologize, sir," All Might said, leaving Endeavor even more confused. Not only did he smack All Might, but he then was able to get the man to apologize. The only other people he knew that could do that was Recovery Girl and UA University Principal Nizu. To be fair though, anyone who went there was scared of those two. Well, this got interesting. Still, I hope Izuku and Shoto are doing okay without me. Meanwhile, in another part of the Endeavor agency. "Izuku no," Shoto said, in a stern tone in an attempt to sound like his dad. "But Shoto, why can't I ask these questions?" Izuku whined in response. "Because they're stupid." "No they're not," Izuku replied. "You have a question asking if their quirk alters their taste buds and another that asks if quirk made him fart fire. I just want to know as much as I can about the quirk." Izuku pouted at Shoto, shooting down a lot of his questions for Endeavor's sidekicks. Seeing how Izuku was reacting, Shoto decided to help improve Izuku's attitude. "Come on Izuku, I got something we can do that will be super fun," Shoto exclaimed, raising his arms in the process to emphasize the point. "Really, what is it?" Izuku asked, only for his response to come in the form of Shoto taking his hand and leading him to another part of the agency. "I don't believe we've met." "You are?" Endeavor asked the elder that had come in with All Might. "You younguns today, you usually introduce yourself before asking someone else's name." "True, but at this point, I just assume people know me." Endeavor replied, being the number 2 hero, he had gotten used to the lack of introductions on his part. "My name is Endeavor." "Okay, so we're going with our hero names. Well then I'm Gran Torino, and I see you already know my former pupil here," Gran Torino replied as he pointed to All Might. "Not to sound rude, but can we cut the beating around the bush, and you two tell me why you're here?" Endeavor asked. It was rare for All Might to make an appearance at his agency, so he had plenty of questions. "It's about that kid you took in. We need to know if that brat knows about his father and or his associates," Torino responded. "Sorry for that, Endeavor, my old teacher isn't known for being subtle. We just want to know if Izuku has mentioned anything he may have overheard," All Might said, apologizing for his teacher. "He said nothing about Hisashi." "Now, if you're done, you can leave," Endeavor said in a harsh tone, directed mostly at Torino. "I don't buy it, that brat must have heard something, and I want to know right now." "Oh I'm sorry, do I need to say that a bit louder? I do hear an elderly person's hearing is quite atrocious. Perhaps I'll write it out for you, or have you gone senile as well?" Endeavor asked, clearly mocking Gran Torino. Soon a forehead tick formed on Torino's head, a clear sign of his annoyance. "Now listen here, you flamey dash." Before Torino could finish his sentence, All Might was quick to cover his teacher's mouth as to stop him from offending Endeavor. Now. No need to go throwing around insults at each other. "I'm sorry about that, Endeavor. It's just we believe that Izuku's father may have been in contact with a villain we've been hunting for a long time. Who Gran Torino has been trying to take down for many years," All Might explained. Making sure not to reveal too much about All for One or its sister quirk, One for All. Endeavor let out a sigh that sounded more like a growl. "The only info Izuku has given me that wasn't in my report was that it seems Hisashi knew some kind of doctor that could fix quite a few things. But I wouldn't take that info too seriously." "Why's that?" All Might asked. "'Cause the only reason I know this now was my eldest son Tuya. He told me that Izuku had a nightmare, and Hisashi in the dream briefly mentioned it. I know dreams aren't much, but things like memories or external influences influence some dreams," Endeavor said back. "Still better than nothing," Torino replied. Endeavor gave the elderly hero a fierce look. A clear sign he was still annoyed with the hero. All Might groaned in exhaustion. He knew this was not going to end well. After another an hour of discussions, All Might and Gran Torino said they had gotten what they needed. Before walking out, the officer, All Might, and Endeavor shook hands, while Gran Torino and Endeavor just glared at each other intensely, sparks flying between them for a moment. But as the three heroes walked out of Endeavor's private office, they were met with the sight of one of Endeavor's sidekicks on the ground laughing, as Shoto was ticking the man as Izuku was hitting his head with his quirk notebook. "Give up, villain!" Izuku shouted as he hit the sidekick's head with his notebook repeatedly. "Yes, we have you cornered," Shoto shouted as continued to tickle to down sidekick's now exposed feet. "Ha ha 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 I give up," the sidekick gasped as Shoto's tickling made it difficult to breathe, due to his excessive laughter. "So, you've captured the dangerous head villain and have him at your mercy, correct?" Endeavor asked the two kids. "Yeah." Shoto and Izuku cheered in delight. "That is just what I let you believe. The large man of flames exclaimed as he grasped both underarms in a duo of headlocks. Foolish would-be heroes. The supposed head villain you captured was merely a decoy. He continued as he proceeded to tickle the two kids. Give up, foolish heroes. You'll never defeat me. NN. Never, Shoto replied through all the laughter. Sue, someone, help. Izuku gasped as he went red in the face from laughter. Have no fear, fellow heroes, for I am here. Before the kids could register the voice, they were suddenly swept from Endeavor's grasp. Looking to their savior, the boys were in awe that it was the #1 hero himself, All Might. Good work on handling the evil villain and his forces, but leave this to me, a villain this powerful can only be defeated by the symbol of peace himself, All Might said as he rolled along with the game between the boys and Endeavor. But before the two titans could clash. Oh my god, it's really him in the flesh, it's All Might. Izuku screamed in joy at seeing his favorite hero of all time. The scream brought the game to a grinding halt as the top two heroes looked to Izuku, who was buzzing with excitement at finally getting to meet his idol. Seeing the little green-haired boy's excitement at his presence, All Might decided to introduce himself. Why hello there, young man, if I'm not mistaken, you must be the one Endeavor told us about, Izuku, am I right? All Might asked as he knelt in front of Izuku. Why yes. I am Izuku, Izuku responded, his excitement making it difficult to speak, even more than he was scared. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you, Izuku, All Might said as he held out his hand for the young hero Otaku. It took him a few moments, but Izuku shook All Might's hand. In his mind, Izuku was going insane from excitement. He met his idol, whose smile made him hopeful when he was living with Inko that one day he'd be saved. The handshake between the hero and his biggest fan went on for an awkwardly long time, Izuku not wanting this moment to end and All Might not wanting to make him feel upset, which would anger Endeavor and his son. The excitement of the handshake soon proved too much for Izuku. As soon the pair hand stopped the handshake, Izuku mumbled something before he passed out in front of All Might. Is this a usual occurrence? All Might asked, not knowing what to do. Thankfully Endeavor was quick to act as he ran over to the now unconscious Izuku and carried him into his private office, with All Might, Shoto and surprisingly Torino close behind. Oh no, Izuku's dead. Shoto screamed as he watched his dad lay Izuku on the couch in his office. Calm down, Shoto, Izuku isn't dead, he just passed out, think of it like suddenly falling asleep, Endeavor explained to try and help his son calm down. Wait, if it's like that, then, before Endeavor could stop him, Shoto grabbed Izuku's shoulders and started to shake Izuku. Izuku, wake up. Mom has made katsudon. Shoto shouted as he tried to wake Izuku up. After getting Shoto to stop shaking Izuku in an attempt to wake him up, it took only a few minutes until the 6-year-old started to regain consciousness. As little Izuku quickly recovered, his eyes opened slowly to the diminutive senior in front of him. Huh? Oh my gosh. I slept until Mega Man became real, old, and yellow. Izuku exclaimed. His declaration made the room erupt with laughter, mostly from Endeavor and All Might, as the pair found it difficult not to fall over in laughter. After a few minutes of laughter, Izuku was back to his usual self, as he started to ask All Might questions from his hero work to his quirk, the giant of a man redirecting the question the best he could like he did whenever asked in an interview. Well, you can stay here and act like a fool, I'm heading out, Torino said as he made his way to the exit, but was stopped when he felt someone tugging at his cape. Turning around he saw it was Demon's Breathe son. Excuse me, Izuku whimpered. What do you want, kid? Torino asked, his tone clear. He was in a hurry to leave. I was wondering if you could tell me your quirk? I'm sorry if I'm being rude, Izuku asked as he simultaneously apologized. Why would you want to know my quirk? Torino replied. Well, I like to learn about quirks. Mostly on how they work. Listen, kid, Before Torino could shoot down the kid's request, All Might suddenly appeared next to his former teacher and Izuku, grinning like always. He would be excited to inform you, young man, and if not, I will be happy to inform you myself, All Might proclaimed. This caused two reactions. Izuku's being one of glee and Torino being one of anger as he scowled at All Might before he could tell the boy anything. Torino dragged All Might to a secluded corner of the room. Toshi, explain yourself, the elderly hero shouted in a low tone as not to raise anyone's suspicions. Endeavor said the boy has a talent for quirks. Besides, it's not like you're an active hero anymore, outside of you helping me deal with All for One. All Might rebutted. Still, giving this kid info on my quirk could backfire on us? But what if it doesn't? All Might said. Endeavor said this young boy idolizes heroes and hasn't had any contact with his father since he left him when he was 3. What if, with the right support and environment, that scared little boy could grow up into being an amazing hero? Besides, this one small act could later define how that boy grows. All Might debated to his former teacher. Torino could see the convictions in Toshi's eyes. For a moment, it reminded him of Nana when she first told him about wanting to make Toshi her successor, even if he didn't have a quirk. Looking back to the kid, the pair left waiting for their response. Torino took in a deep breath and walked back over to the kid. "You still want to know my quirk, kid?" Torino asked as he walked up to Izuku. The little boy nodded with enthusiasm. "My quirk allows me to shoot air from the soles of my feet. This gives me incredible speed and allows me to fly a short distance." "Can you show me, please?" Izuku begged. Looking back to his student, Torino saw All Might was doing the same thing. Deciding to appease the pair, Torino let loose with his quirk as he darted around the office, narrowly avoiding any potential dangers with ease, a clear sign of how much he had trained with his quirk. All the while, Izuku was both looking at the elderly hero in awe and intrigue as he wrote down as much as he could about Gran Torino's quirk and technique. After his little display, Torino landed back next to Izuku, who had started mumbling up a storm about Torino's quirk. The elderly hero could see that he had satisfied the kid's interest tenfold and made his way to the exit, but not before grumbling to All Might. He expects plenty of taiyaki the next time they meet up. After Gran Torino left, All Might elected to stay behind and get to know the boys a little more and have a bit of fun. It ended with the symbol of peace spending the rest of the day at the agency. Mostly due to all the fun he was having with the kids and losing track of time. The day ended with Endeavor, Izuku, and Shoto escorting All Might out the agency just as they were about to head home. "Well, I have to say, I never expected to have so much fun in this visit." All Might cheered. "Don't be, kids have their way to get you to do whatever they want, mostly it pesters you or in these two cases, just use the puppy eyes tactics," Endeavor said as he looked back to Izuku and Shoto who were giggling at their accomplishment. "I'll make sure to remember that. I better be off. Criminals sadly don't apprehend themselves." All Might and Endeavor shared a final handshake before All Might walked a few feet away from the agency so his leap would damage the building. Izuku had loved today. He got tons of new quirks for his notebook, he got to play with Shoto and meet and even talk to his idol. But as he saw All Might get ready to leave, he felt upset. He had so many more questions to ask him, but one question stood out the most to him, and it had nothing to do with his quirk. He didn't want to lose this opportunity, he couldn't. "All Might!" Izuku shouted as he ran to the number one hero, catching both Todoroki's and All Might off guard. All Might looked back to see Izuku run up to him but stopped just as he was a couple of feet away from him. "Yes, young Izuku, is there something the matter?" All Might asked. I was, W1NDR." Izuku was fighting back the fear the best he could. He was worried at the answer he would get. What would All Might say? Would he be just like everyone from before, or would he be like the Todorokis? Izuku swallowed his fear and readied himself. Can someone with a villainous parent be a hero? Even if their quirk is just like theirs? Izuku screamed from the top of his lungs. Toshi reeled back in shock at Izuku's question. He knew earlier he said to his former teacher how his help might affect Izuku, but this moment, right here, right now, defiantly would leave an impact on Izuku. Toshi looked to Endeavor, who just stared back in surprise. He didn't know about this or even plan it. Getting as close as he could to Izuku's height, Toshi kneeled in front of Izuku and gave him the biggest smile he could. "Of course you can, young Izuku, while it's true your quirk is similar to your father's in a few ways. You must always remember, it isn't his quirk you have, it's your quirk, and it's up to you what you make of it, no matter its origin. Your father decided to use his quirk to hurt people instead of helping others, but remember it's up to what you make of the quirk. No one else can tell you what to do with it or what you'll be in the future, that is your decision and yours alone." His lips start quivering with his eyes beginning to water when suddenly a mighty torrent of water almost drowns All Might. He raised his head to see Izuku looking like some strange humanoid broken fire hydrant. "Thank you, All Might. You really are the bestest hero ever," Izuku shouted as he continued to cry. Endeavor upon hearing this can't help but feel his competitive impulses burn like his fire. Unlike his fire, it cools quickly, seeing Izuku as happy as he is. "Oh, I almost forget, I was talking to a friend of mine who was helping Endeavor with your case, and he asked me to give you this when he heard I was dropping by." All Might pulled from his pockets a worn, slightly damaged teddy bear. The clear amateur repair work was evident with the poor stitching and misplacement with the stuffing. Izuku, however, didn't care as All Might could see the stars in Izuku's eyes. "Mr. Patches!" Izuku screamed as he swiped the teddy from All Might's grasp before he could say anything and held the bear close to his chest. I didn't realize the bear was that important to you, young Izuku." "Yep. Mr. Patches was my favorite toy since I was a baby, but after my Inko saw my quirk. She took him away from me. I thought she threw him away, Izuku replied as he continued to hug his now recovered toy with all his might, fearing if he didn't, it would disappear again. It was then All Might saw tears start to run down Izuku's face as he continued to hug his toy. All Might was proud he could do this for Izuku. After repeating his farewells, All Might leaped away, leaving Endeavor with Izuku and Shoto. The rest of the night was peaceful, the most entertaining thing being, Izuku refusing to let go of Mr. Patches, even when Ray offered to get it repaired by a friend. Izuku was saying he loved his teddy as he is, not wanting to change a thing about it. The best part of the night being Izuku, for the first time in what seemed like forever, had a peaceful night's sleep without the aid of any of the Todorokis. My Twitter, https, twitter.com Normandy19981 Chapter text. A sibling relationship is a strange thing. Some days one might want to kick your brothers but for hogging the controller or not listening when you say you're busy. Other days, they can be so close that if someone hurts the other, you can almost guarantee the sibling, young or old, is going to want revenge. Other times, however, they just like to argue. That was the case in the Todoroki household. Absolutely untrue. You can say that all you want, sis, but it will never be right. Everyone knows I'm Aizu and Shoto's fave elder sibling, Tuya chuckled. Fuyumi simply scoffed in response. Oh please, whenever they need help with anything, they come to me first. Like when Shoto needs help with his homework or Aizu needs help with proper wording in his Quirk notebook, she responded. Yet, when they want someone to play hero with, they come and ask me to play with them. Okay then, question, do you ever get to play the hero, or do you always have to play the villain, so Shoto and Aizu get to play hero together, Fuyumi asked with a Cheshire cat smile across her face as if she already knew. They named me Dabi, Tuya muttered, seeming to lose the pride he had a moment ago. Why? Fuyumi asked. Apparently, it's cool but it sounds too edgy to be taken seriously, Tuya replied. I bet Aizu came up with it, probably thought it'd make you cooler. DMN Fuyumi and her skills of figuring this stuff out, Tuya cursed mentally. Speaking of the little guy, it looks like Izuku has been doing a lot better since visiting Dad's agency, Tuya said, and he was right. In the last month, Izuku's recovery had made significant improvement, the frequency of his nightmares having declined significantly. Granted, most believed it was thanks to Izuku getting back Mr. Patches. Still can't believe how much getting that toy back helped him. It's not just the toy. All Might, Izuku's idol, returned it to him and told him he could be a hero. Pretty sure that was a major factor, Fuyumi explained, only leaving her older brother more confused. You seem to know a lot about this kind of stuff, any particular reason? He asked. Well, I do want to be a teacher, and knowing stuff like this helps, especially with spotting kids that need help in certain topics or problems in their home life. Really? Because I don't recall any of my teachers giving 2 sheets. Exactly. I want to help kids that never got the help they deserved, Fuyumi explained, feeling proud of herself for her goal. Still, I'm glad he's getting better. I think I even heard Dad say he might need to start talking about getting Izuku enrolled at Shoto's school. Fuyumi squealed in excitement at the prospect of those two being in the same class. I would so pay to see that. Tuya chuckled. I bet Shoto would keep Izuku all to himself, those two are practically inseparable sometimes. Fuyumi giggled. I bet, heck, I don't think Izuku would complain about that. Yeah. Still, when he seemed so happy, you wouldn't think he went through all the stuff Dad said. Yeah, which is why I want to do my best to help get back what he missed out on. Fuyumi cheered, as she moved her arm into the air. I helped give him his first good snow day. He loved it so much, he keeps asking if we can do it again soon. Seriously, he never had a good snow day? That's like a staple in childhood experiences. I know, that's why I was happy to help. Makes me wonder though, what else has Izuku missed out on? Fuyumi asked to make a light go off in Tuya's head. Maybe I could help show Izuku some of the stuff he missed out on. After asking his parents for permission and seeing if Izuku would be up for it, Tuya decided to take Izuku out for the day, in Tuya's own words, to help him experience what he missed out on. It was a simple plan. Tuya would take Izuku to the nearby park and a couple of areas close to the house. Okay Izuku, you ready? Tuya asked. Yep. Izuku replied with enthusiasm. Wait for me, a voice called out from further in the house. Around the corner came Shoto, all prepped to go outside. Wait Shoto, you want to come? Yes. I want to spend time with you and my best friend. Shoto cheered as he hugged Izuku, who was quick to hug back. Getting their shoes on, the three boys made their way to the nearby park. Upon arrival, they saw the place seemed to be relatively calm, with only a few people within view of the entrance. Tuya was happy at this, less chance of Izuku feeling scared from dealing with large groups of people. Okay, so what do you two want to do first? He asked. Shoto was quick to raise his hand. Oh, I want to feed the duckies. He cheered. Okay. That's one vote for ducks. What about you, Izuku? Anything you want to do? Izuku jumped at the question. Oh, I'm fine with why you want to do, Izuku replied. Well okay then, we'll feed the ducks. I know a certain kid, with candy cane, themed Shoto, at that moment, kicked Tuya's shin. Ow, DMN Shoto, learn to take a joke, Tuya winced in pain. Shoto pouted. I'd rather have candy cane hair than try and dye my hair like you did. He fired back. Only to stop because I said you look dumb, Shoto replied mockingly. Soon Tuya and Shoto got into what could only be called a brother's spat. They continued to hurl insults at each other, all the while, Izuku watched curiously, wondering if this is what Ray called a good sibling relationship. After Tuya and Shoto had finished their little spat, Tuya led the boys to the park's impressively made pond. Granted, Tuya swore the size of the said pond seemed more like a lake due to size. But he was happy in this case, it helped disperse the people around the pond and in turn, gave certain spots a more calming aura. Okay, you two, who wants to feed the ducks? Tuya asked. Shoto was quick to raise his hand. I do. He cheered. Izuku meanwhile, simply raised his hand slowly. Me too. Cool, now if I remember. Tuya scanned the nearby area and to his luck, he spotted what he was looking for, a food cart. Okay, you two wait here, I'll be right back. Dashing to the cart, the kid saw Tuya buy something from the cart and once he returned, he handed the boys something that threw them for a loop. Birdseed? Shoto let out, confused at his brother's purchase. Yeah, they started selling it a few years ago. I thought you fed bread to ducks. Well, not really. The park made it clear that bread isn't a healthy option for the ducks and it makes the water dirtier. So they enforced new rules and even had the food carts sell the more healthy options, Tuya explained to Izuku and Shoto. Oh, so the adults who run the park don't want the duckies to get hurt. Exactly. After the little lesson on appropriate food for ducks, the boys soon got to feeding the inhabitants of the lake. After a while, a few ducks turned into a dozen. Soon enough, it seemed like the boys had attracted all the ducks living in the lake. Wow, the ducks are fond of you, Izuku, Tuya pointed out, as he glanced at Izuku. You think so? Shoto asked. True to Tuya's words, it almost seemed like all the ducks and their young were eating the birdseed Izuku was throwing into the pond. Tuya chuckled when he saw his little brother get the stragglers of Izuku's flock. But when he turned back, he was shocked to find that the baby ducks had taken to resting on Izuku's head. They had taken a special liking to him. Hee, look Tuya, the baby ducks love me. Izuku laughed. The ducks were plentiful enough, it almost seemed to the prying eye, that Izuku's quirk was control of the waterfowl and that he was trying to form a suit of duck armor. He had 2 green-headed mallards upon his shoulders, 2 flushes of ducklings lining his clothing's pockets, a single white duck seated on his upturned clasped palms, and his legs surrounded by a lake of white, brown, and black. Can I keep them? He asked with a level of joy and hope most wouldn't believe possible from a boy with his background. Tuya knew he had to be strong, he had to fight against the overwhelming force that was Izuku's ultimate puppy dog face, as Fuyumi called it. Well, Izuku, our place isn't made for, well, this many baby ducks. And how do you think the other kids would feel if you took the baby ducks from them? Tuya asked. Izuku quickly lost his cheery look, for a more thoughtful one, or as intelligent as a 6-year-old could be. Oh, they would be super sad. Tuya was quick to jump on this line of thought. That's right. The other kids like watching, feeding, playing with, and The elder boy listing things off his fingers realized that bringing up how some children tended to scare the birds for fun wasn't a great argument for making Izuku leave them behind. If he said that, it would most certainly make Izuku more determined to keep the ducks. So yeah, plenty of other kids like the ducks too and their families also tell them. What's the 4th thing? Izuku asked. The 4th thing. You said play, feed, watch, and. But you didn't say the 4th thing, Izuku pointed out. It was times like these that Tuya had learned to load the small green fluff ball's unparalleled natural observation abilities. Shoto quickly raised his hand, getting the others' attention. Oh, they love to get pictures of the ducks, he answered. Hearing this, Izuku agreed with his best friend. Doing their best not to hurt the ducks, the 3 of them pulled the ducks off Izuku and put them back into the pond. After patting down the feathers that had caught on Izuku's clothes, Tuya led the boys further into the park. For a while, all was calm. Tuya listened as Izuku and Shoto talked about heroes, mostly sticking to all might and endeavor. Until. Kitty! The 2 boys cheered, catching Tuya off guard. He turned and saw Izuku and Shoto petting a kitten. From where he was standing, Tuya saw it was a mostly black cat, with red fur looping around its legs and its jawline covered in red fur. he let out a chuckle at how it seemed to like Izuku more as it brushed up against his leg. Wonder if it's doing that for affection or it senses the heat off Izuku's legs from his quirk? Tuya pondered as he watched Izuku and Shoto continue to pet the kitten. He's so cute. Shoto yelled as Izuku picked up the cat. He's also really fluffy, Izuku replied as he scratched under the kitten's chin, the consistent purring making it clear Izuku had found its favorite spot. Tuya watched the boys carefully but after a few minutes, he let out a sigh. Well, time's up. Tuya whispered, knowing Izuku and Shoto aren't going to be happy. Walking over, Tuya crouched down to be at eye level with the pair. Okay, I think that's long enough, time to put the little guy down. As expected, both boys gave him a confused look. Izuku brought the cat closer to his chest. But why? Because that might be someone else's cat and you two clearly want to keep the little guy, am I right? As expected, Izuku and Shoto looked away from Tuya. Listen, there's no problem with playing, but I bet you wouldn't like it if someone stole your pet cat. Once again, as expected, the two nodded their heads. With clear reluctance, Izuku placed the kitten back on the ground. Once back on the ground, the little cat ran off, but before losing sight of it, Tuya swore it looked back at them before jumping into a bush. After patting the boys on the back, saying that was very mature of them, they continued their walk through the park. After another 10 minutes of walking through the park, the three found a quiet place to rest. That was until Shoto found a football in the nearby bushes. Once he had the ball, Shoto was quick to run up to his older brother with it. Tuya, can you show us some tricks, please? Shoto pleaded. Tuya was a bit hesitant to do as his brother asked, but figured, what harm could a bit of football do? Okay then, since you're so eager then, watch this. Grabbing the ball, Tuya started his game of keepy-uppy. He kept the ball going for a bit, making sure to throw some tricks in, to appease his quiet little audience. Just as he was at the 30 mark, Tuya just missed the ball, leaving his score at 29. Thank you, thank you. Tuya cheered as he took a little bow, while Shoto and Izuku applauded him. Great job, big bro, I wish I could do that. Shoto cheered. Chuckling at Shoto's praise, Tuya grabbed the ball and held it out to his brother. You're always welcome to try, he said. No way, last time I did I ended up hitting the back of Dad's head. Shoto sniggered. Oh man, he was angry. Can I try? Izuku asked. Sure thing, Izuku, Tuya responded as he handed the ball to Izuku. Don't get upset if you mess up, okay? Once Izuku got his hands on the ball, he quickly started his own game of keepy-uppy. To his onlookers' surprise, Izuku was doing quite well, and before they knew it, Izuku was up to 25 and was still going strong. Before Tuya or Shoto knew what was going on, Izuku had reached 40. Heck, if it wasn't for just him sneezing and missing the ball, they were sure he could have kept going. Izuku's end score ended up being 44. Unfortunately, his combo-breaking sneeze had some surprising power too, causing little Izuku to overshoot the ball and follow it up by stumbling forward. As Izuku tried to balance himself, it was then the stray ball returned from its ascension to strike the young fanboy's head, causing him to hit the ground face first. Izuku quickly regained his bearings and stood up, noticing Shoto giggling and Tuya stifling his own. Good job, Izuku, I can see someone's been training, Tuya chuckled as he walked over to Izuku. If you keep this up, I bet Natsuo will start seeing you as Aro. Hey Izuku, hold still for a second, you got a bit of dirt on you. Tuya went to wipe the dirt off Izuku's face, but the little boy quickly flinched back, catching both of them off guard. Izuku was quick to respond. I'm sorry, Tuya. I didn't mean to. Whoa, what are you talking abo-? It was at that moment of questioning that Tuya realized he had been reaching for an abuse victim with a history of physical violence with an open palm at a quick pace. He wasn't apologizing because he had done anything wrong, but because he thought it was believed he had. Hey, it's okay, Izuku, I understand. It's just your body reacting based on past events. My dad said it's likely something that will take time for you to adjust, Tuya explained. It's my fault for not remembering that you don't need to apologize. Sadly though, Izuku couldn't hear Tuya's apology. He could almost feel the world around him closing in, turning into a black void, his chest tightening with fear as his heart thumped rapidly against it. No matter how much Izuku tried to breathe in, it all felt useless. He could feel his head splitting at the seams, as it began to flood with all the worst-case scenarios it could conjure. Izuku tried to fight against this, reminding himself that the Todorokis wouldn't hurt him, but it proved futile as more and more images flooded his mind. The only thing Izuku felt at that moment was the tears running down his cheek and the bile rising in his throat. Sheet, what do I do? I wish Dad or Mom were here, they'd know what to do. DMN, I feel so useless. Tuya thought as he watched Izuku continue to tremble in silence. What happened next caught both Tuya and Izuku off guard. Shoto walked up to Izuku, stopping just a couple of feet away from him. You want a hug? It might help, Shoto asked as he held his arms out. As Shoto held his arms out, Izuku could feel a build-up of caution, not fear, but he had learned from the past, an open invitation for physical comfort wasn't always what it seemed. Unlike prior experiences, however, there was no sense of trickery or malice. Shoto had a surprisingly straight face for a person offering consolation, especially for his age. Every instinct Izuku had built up from the years of neglect and abuse was telling him, don't fall for it again, but something else was speaking up. His fragile little heart, even after everything, wanted to take a chance and see if it wasn't a cruel game, that it might get to feel the proper warmth of reciprocated affection once more. Izuku was quick to accept the offer and hugged Shoto, who, at this point, was his best friend. I just want to get better, I don't want to be scared anymore, Izuku wheezed as he continued to hug Shoto. After hugging what felt like forever, Izuku felt someone patting his head. He looked up to see it was Tuya. You make it sound like you haven't improved at all, but look how far you've gotten, Tuya said. But I still get scared, how can I be better? Izuku asked. Well, you agreed to come out with me and Shoto, you're not freezing up as much as you used to. Hell, you're much more social around everyone, I say that's some good progress. Tuya continued to list off the things Izuku can do compared to when he was first found by Endeavor. I do help out Ray a lot and Endeavor is asking for my help with quirks, Izuku said, adding to the little list. See, that's way better than when you could barely speak to people. Tuya cheered. In fact, such progress deserves a very special reward and I know just the thing that's guaranteed to make everyone feel better. Thank you, Tuya. Izuku and Shoto cheered as they dug into their ice cream cones. Tuya was glad he seemed to salvage the day out. The second he brought the boys to the ice cream stand, their paired frowns were replaced with smiles in an instant. Tuya took particular note of how fast Izuku was eating his ice cream. This is amazing. Izuku screamed as he started downing his ice cream. Ugh Izuku, you may want to. Before Tuya could say another word, Izuku yelped as he grabbed the sides of his head, dropping his ice cream in the process. Ha 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 ha, Izuku got a brain freeze. Shoto laughed. Izuku hearing this quickly ran over to Tuya. Tuya quick, unfreeze my brain. Izuku begged as the brain freeze felt like it was getting worse. Tuya did his best to hold back his laughter after hearing Izuku's request, but it proved too much for the teen as Tuya joined Shoto in the laughing fit. After a couple more hours of playing at the park, Tuya saw it was getting late, as indicated by the setting sun, and to the disappointment of Shoto and Izuku, it meant they had to go home. Before leaving, Izuku said goodbye to some of the ducks he had played with earlier. After Izuku's farewell to the ducks, he, Tuya, and Shoto made their way home. Once back home, Shoto and Izuku quickly took their shoes off and ran toward the kitchen. Upon entering the said room, they saw Ray was in the middle of finishing dinner. Hi, Mom. Hi, Ray. They cheered. Hearing the boys' cheers, Ray smiled as she turned to face them. Oh, evening boys. Did you enjoy your day at the park? Yeah. Izuku cheered. We got to play with the ducks, then we played some football and Tuya treated us to ice cream and it was delicious. You forgot the part where you got a brain freeze. Shoto snickered, and Izuku just pouted back. Ray giggled seeing how the two were acting, to her it was so precious. Well, you two should wash up for dinner. Okay, they said as they ran out of the kitchen, just missing Tuya on the way out. So how did it go? Did you use the boys to try and impress some girls? Ray giggled, causing Tuya to blush. And no, we just fed the ducks and played football, he said. Ray smiled. Great, I'm glad you three enjoyed yourselves. Did anything happen? She asked. Well, it didn't start off that great. Tuya muttered. Oh, did something happen? Ray asked, the concern clear in her voice. Tuya then told his mother about Izuku's little moment. The mother was silent the entire duration of the story, only nodding occasionally to let Tuya know she was still listening. Once Tuya was finished with his story, he was surprised to then feel Ray pat his head. You did a great job, she said. Huh? He was quick to refocus himself when his mind had processed what his mother had said. But it was Shoto who comforted Izuku, not me. Hell, I made things worse. Nope, Ray replied, once again catching her son off guard. You did the best you could and helped Izuku see his progress. And so what if you needed Shoto's help? Tuya, it's okay to get help, you can't do everything. Ray's words brought a smile to Tuya. He was happy he had Ray as a mum on days like this. It just made him wonder how his dad, who was terrible at romance, had convinced Ray to go out on a second date. Now on to more important businesses. Did you get any adorable pics of Shoto and Izuku? Ray asked, excited for Tuya's answer. You see. Tuya mumbled, causing Ray to pout at her eldest son. I can't believe you missed out on a golden opportunity. Ray whined as she flailed her arms in a cartoonish way. To think I raised a son, who can't tell when you need to get pics? What about when you have a kid, huh? I bet it'll be up to me or whoever you marry to know when, Rei whined. Izuku let out a giggle as Rei tucked the young boy into what he still believed was the fluffiest bed in the world. Rei smiled at the simple smile, before wishing the little boy sweet dreams and kissing his forehead. But as Izuku was on the cusp of falling asleep, a scratching sound jostled the boy awake. Confused, Izuku scanned the room and saw nothing in the light of his all-might nightlight. Hearing the scratching again, Izuku jumped out of bed and headed to his window, only to let out a gasp at what he saw. "Kitty!" Izuku squealed, trying his best not to be too loud. Hoisting himself onto a nearby toy chest, Izuku reached for the latch for his window. Once he had opened it enough, the black and red cat squeezed through the gap and leaped from the windowsill onto the floor. Quickly Izuku shut the window and set the latch back into position. Afterward, he jumped from the top of the toy chest, and after almost falling on his face, he walked over to the kitten from the park and scratched under its chin. "Hi there, what are you doing here?" Izuku asked, only for the kitten to brush up against his leg again and let out an affectionate meow. "Don't you have an owner?" The kitten shook its head in response, only then to rub up against Izuku's leg. "What should I do?" Izuku thought, worried this would make Rei and Enji really mad at him for just taking in a pet without their permission. Izuku looked back at the cat and saw it shiver slightly, making up his mind. Izuku carefully picked up the kitten and carried it into his bed. "I won't leave you outside, I bet Rei and Enjoy won't mind just one night," Izuku beamed. He knew Rei and Enji understand, and at the very least, the little kitten gets a good sleep and some food later. Izuku carefully placed the kitten next to him before getting back under the covers. He let out a giggle as the kitten jumped around the bed before it walked under the bed covers and curled up next to Izuku. Izuku beamed as he hugged the cat as he fell asleep, all the while the black and red cat purred. To say Rei was surprised would be an understatement. Somehow during the night, the kitten Izuku had supposedly played with in the park followed the little boy home, found his bedroom window, and snuggled up with the tyke. Rei wouldn't deny it was one of the cutest things she had ever seen, only being topped when she had walked in on toddler Fuyumi riding on her father's back as she shouted what she thought was horsey. Back to the matter at hand, Rei was conflicted as she watched Izuku play with the cat in the living room. Enji had thankfully called the agency and said he'd be a while. All he needed to do was say it was an Izuku matter, no one bat an eyelash at it. "So what should we do?" he asked as Izuku used a laser pointer to make the black and red kitten jump around the couch. "I mean, they've clearly formed an attachment and who knows, a pet might help Izuku to recover, but it's a stray. For all we know it ran away from home or had something that could make Izuku sick," Rei explained. Her maternal instincts, while not screaming like whenever she saw any of her children in danger, it was definitely flaring as her mind went through every scenario she could think of. "I understand your concern," Enji replied. It was then the pair noticed the small kitten let out a yawn and wandered back to Izuku and laid down across the small child's legs. It let out a purr as Izuku scratched behind its ear. Rei saw Enji nod at the sight. "I think I understand why it likes Izuku." "Well, besides his adorable nature," Rei piped up. Enji nodded at her comment. "Well, but certain animals are attracted to certain quirks, like how a dog will avoid sound quirk users but flock to canine quirk users," he explained. "Tuya did say when they found the little guy yesterday, the kitten would keep brushing up against Izuku's legs." "Oh, that explains it." Rei loved it when her husband could break down such issues and figure out the story or explanation. It reminded her of how they met, such a pleasant memory in such a dark PRD. So the little guy likes the heat Izuku's quirk passively generates, and with his affectionate nature, the little guy just found the perfect owner. "Still something that confuses me, if it likes heat-based quirks, why isn't it bothering with me or even Tuya and Shoto?" Enji asked as he stroked his beard. "Maybe it's because you're too hot?" Rei replied casually, just as Enji coughed and started blushing like crazy. "Not like that, sweetie. I meant like there's a difference between an intense heat and a comfortable heat. Maybe due to your quirk strength and how strong Tuya and Shoto are, it's too much for the little guy to find comfortable, while Izuku's quirk is just right for him." "Well, I can see the logic, bu Enji. Rei!" Izuku shouted, gaining the two adults' attention. "Are you mad I let the kitten in?" he asked. Soon his face took on a look of worry, only stopping when the kitten suddenly got up and nuzzled the boy. "No. No. Izuku." Rei was quick to sit next to Izuku and place an arm around his shoulder. "We're not mad. We know you didn't want to leave this little guy outside," but as Rei reached to pet the black and red kitten, it somehow shot a glare at Rei, only to drop it once Izuku started stroking its back. "Well, it's just we're worried about you." "But why?" "I asked him and the kitty said it didn't have an owner, also it looked lonely," Izuku explained. Rei let out an ah, but Enji was more confused. "Wait, the cat, told you it doesn't have a family? Enji questioned. He knew there had been several cases of animals with quirks, but no way had Izuku found one of these rare finds. Ugh, I asked him and he shook his head when I asked if he had an owner, didn't I, Litten? The cat, apparently now called Litten, nodded in response. Enji did his best not to show his confusion at the name, something Ray failed at. Why Litten? I thought you picked something like Ember or Fluffy. Fuyumi said it reminded her of Fire because of his red fur and yellow eyes. And he is a kitten, so she said Litten is cute and he loves it. Almost to back up Izuku's comment, Litten meowed loudly and proceeded to nuzzle up to Izuku and poured like there was no tomorrow. Enji grinned at the sight. He was happy Izuku could have a moment like this, just be a regular kid. He let out a sigh, his mind was made up. Okay then, it's decided, he called, gaining the attention of Izuku, Ray, and Litten. We'll take him to the vet and after getting him examined and what's necessary, you can keep him Izuku. The second Enji had finished his sentence, Izuku's eyes shone like a star as he bolted towards the flame hero and hugged his leg. All Enji could hear was Izuku's muffled thank yous and his promise to take care of his new pet and make sure he was well behaved. For a brief moment though in the corner of his eye, Enji swore he saw the cat give him what looked to be a hateful glare, but when he focused on the cat, it glanced away and began to lick himself. Strange, must be seeing things. To Enji and Ri's surprise, Izuku was right, Litten was a stray and according to the vet, a surprisingly young one at that. But despite the odds, the little guy was quite healthy, maybe a bit thin, the vet casually mentioned during the examination. But Enji knew that wouldn't be an issue for long. From there it was a breeze, the only issue was when they had to leave Litten overnight and Ray had to stop Izuku from staying the night as well. But why? Izuku whined his question as Ray picked him up with ease. Won't he get lonely without me? Don't worry Izuku, Litten will be in safe hands, Ray assured him in her motherly tone as she booped his nose. We'll be back for him first thing in the morning and you can play with him all day, sound fair? Izuku looked back to Litten with a clear sadness but he nodded his head, only to quickly look Ray in the eye. But we come as soon as we can, right? I don't want Litten to be alone. Ray let out an ah and squeezed Izuku in a hug. Again Enji swore he saw the cat glared up at them when Ray hugged Izuku. Don't worry sweetie, we'll be here as soon as the vet calls us to say Litten is safe to take home, and like that, Enji, Ray, and Izuku left the vet. Knowing Izuku's thoughts would be stuck on Litten however, before Enji left for his hero agency, he said it'd be a good idea to get a few things for Izuku's room so Litten be more comfortable. Enji smiled as Izuku's mood took an immediate turn for the better. After a final goodbye, Ray and Izuku waved Enji goodbye as he headed off to his agency, the pair now curious about a more important matter. You think Litten wants a rubber mouse? Like Ray had told Izuku, Litten's checkup had only taken a day. Once the pair were shown the small kitten, it surprised Ray when it leapt into Izuku's arms and purred up a storm. No wonder Izuku loves this little guy, he's so affectionate. Ray smiled as she watched this adorable sight, though to her surprise when she went to pet the kitten it hissed at her, to the surprise of both her and Izuku. Well, I guess he just isn't a fan of me, Ray laughed as the cat went back to its purring. After a final check with the vet, Litten was given a clean bill of health. Granted the vet did recommend to make sure the little feline was given plenty of food and exercise. With a nod, Ray and Izuku left the vet now with a healthy Litten as they made their way home. Ray, is it okay if Litten sleeps in my bed? Izuku asked as they neared the Todoroki estate. Ray pondered the question but only for a moment. Sure sweetie, but we'll have to put his litter box and a couple of things somewhere else, don't want that stinking up your room, do we? Ray's question was quickly answered with a quick nod. The pair slipped into silence as they got closer to the estate until Ray had a thought. Izuku, me and Enji have been curious, not saying it needs to happen tomorrow, but would you like for us to enroll you into Shoto's school? Ray's question brought the small child to an abrupt stop, his heart clenched with a mix of emotions. Fear at the potential bullying from his classmates, excitement from getting to spend more time with Shoto, and joy that Ray and Enji were considering sending him to the same school as their youngest son. Before the emotions could take him over, he heard the now familiar purring and looked up to see Ray had not only stopped but crouched before him. Izuku took in a deep breath, doing what he could to push back any negative emotions. I really like that, a lot, he meekly replied. Ray smiled brightly as she tousled the young boy's hair. I'm happy to hear that Izuku, but before we do anything like this, I think we deserve a nice treat and I just so happen to have a secret stash of biscuits and I need some help finishing some off, would you like to help? Ray held out her hand and quickly, Izuku shifted Litten into his left arm and used his free hand to take Ray's hand. The pair smiled as they finished the trek back home, not noticing the glare Litten was giving the woman. The joy Izuku felt when he brought Litten home was immersible. The fiery kitten was always by his side and eager for hugs and scratches. Izuku did find it strange that he seemed to be the only one Litten would let close to him. He recalled a little of what Enji and Rei said when he was playing with Litten. Granted, most of his attention was on the kitten, but he heard mention of fire quirks and animals like certain ones. Yet with the other fire quirk users in the house. Ow! The little bstrd scratched me. Tuya curses as he sees the faint scratch marks on his hand. Thankfully it didn't draw blood. Tuya language. Rei shouted from the kitchen. Tuya huffed as he glared at the kitten. It's Litten's fault, he scratched me. He shouted back. Izuku bolted up from his spot by the back door and ran to the elder boy. He mumbled an apology as he looked at Tuya's hand. No worries Izuku, just Litten being a pain. Sorry Tuya, Litten just doesn't like strangers, Izuku explained, but this only made Tuya frown. It's been 2 weeks since it came back from the vet, not like I'm hardly around, should at least know I'm not a threat. Before Izuku could respond, the two heard a shriek and suddenly Fuyumi burst into the living room. Tears flowing almost as bad when Izuku started crying and holding up a shredded book. Who did this to my book? She shrieked. Rei was quickly in the room and took hold of the former textbook. I found it under my bed and shredded to pieces. Not only that, but some of my old plushies are missing. Wait, you're missing stuff too? Tuya asked. I've been looking everywhere for my blanket. This only seemed to enrage the Todoroki daughter. Who cares about a stupid book? That textbook was important. It was for my test in a couple of days and it was tricky enough to find. Now I got to replace it. The only daughter of Enji and Rei stomped her foot as Rei looked through the book, hopeful to find something of salvage, but it seems the book was completely shredded. That blanket was specially made for me. Unlike ice quirk users, we fire quirk users need special material to avoid sweating all night and be comfortable. Tuya screamed back. Izuku was getting worried as he watched Tuya and Fuyumi start their screaming match. Thankfully, Litten was quick to leap into Izuku's lap to provide the young boy some comfort. A thud echoed through the room as Rei slammed the shredded book on the kitchen counter, bringing a stop to the argument and drawing all the attention in the room onto her in one move. Now you two calm down this instant or there'll be consequences. But what dash? The two teenagers' complaints were cut off by Rei smacking her hand on the book. The two gulped at their mother's cold glare. Tuya snorted as he moved past his sister. A moment later they heard his bedroom open and close. Now that's over, Fuyumi, I'll look for a replacement tomorrow. You should have some notes which should help until tomorrow. If not, maybe text a classmate to share notes. Think you could message that girl you talked about the other day. To Izuku's confusion, Fuyumi went from a deep frown to instantly as red as Enji's hair and started acting strange. Bubat, she wa'ant, ha-have, Fuyumi muttering soon devolved into gibberish as Izuku saw steam almost coming off her head. Rei giggled as she led her daughter back to her room, thus leaving Izuku alone with Litten. Why do you think Fuyumi acted like that? Izuku's question only seemed to get Litten to roll his eyes before laying down for a nap in his owner's lap. Meanwhile down the hall, after she had led Fuyumi into her room and encouraged her to message the classmate she clearly had a hardcore crush on, Rei stopped a few feet from her daughter's door and pondered. Tuya missing blanket, Fuyumi missing plushies, not to mention her shredded book that was clearly shredded by claws. I hope this stops, otherwise, we might need to do something with Litten and I can't see Izuku's heartbreak. Izuku gasped as he broke free from his nightmare. He quickly scanned the room and saw he wasn't back in his old house. Without taking his eyes off his nearby closet, he reached and held Mr. Patches close to his chest. Sadly, it didn't help relieve the stress he was feeling. Even in his nightmares, just seeing his mother, father or Bakugo would send him into a sweat. It'll take forever to get back to sleep. Stupid nightmares. Izuku's thoughts were brought to an abrupt halt as he heard a purr. Looking to the floor, he saw Litten just look at him with a blank stare, the nightlight causing his eyes to glow. Just then Litten jumped up onto the bed and moved towards Izuku. Before the boy could say a thing, Litten laid its head against Izuku's chest and purred happily. Hesitantly Izuku laid back down and stroked the top of Litten's head, enjoying the feel of Litten's fur. Before Izuku knew what had happened, a bright light shone in his eyes. He looked up to see the sun peeking in through his curtains and realized it was morning. But it takes forever to fall back asleep after a nightmare, Izuku wondered aloud. Almost in response, Litten let out a clearly happy meow and licked the green-haired boy's cheek before moving to lay down next to the young boy's head. Izuku stared in shock at the kitten. You helped me. Izuku couldn't hold back the smile as it formed on his face as he looked at his new friend. You're the best, Litten. Rei let out a sigh as she prepared lunch for herself, Shoto, Natsuo, and Izuku. Rei was giggling to herself. Tuya had left to hang out with a classmate and Fuyumi had gone to meet up with her classmate to get her needed notes. She knew Tuya was likely hanging out with a girl from his class and Fuyumi was with her crush. She laughed how both her eldest clearly had the same type, tough girls who are as likely to laugh with you as they are to break something. I wonder if they got that from me or Enji, Rei thought to herself. She had just dished up everyone's lunch when she heard Natsuo shouting outside. Get back here you little bstrd. Natsuo's cursed at the top of his voice. On instinct Rei turned off the burners and ran to the back door. Just as she got there, Litten ran right between her legs. When she looked into the garden, she saw Natsuo holding his favorite football, covered in scratches and bite marks, and she thought a small burn. Look what that mangy cat did to my football, it's destroyed. Natsuo emphasized his point as he put a small bit of pressure, resulting in the ball quickly deflating. It was that cursed cat, no one else can do this damage. Rei saw Izuku wince at Natsuo's remarks but just held his teddy bear. Before Rei could say anything, Natsuo shouted in rage as he threw his deflated ball across the garden and walked past his mother. A moment later Rei heard him stomping up the stairs and then his door being slammed shut. Rei, Shoto, and Izuku winced when they heard the door slam. The Todoroki matriarch put on a brave face for the two boys. Well, how about we just have lunch? The boys were quick to follow Rei into the kitchen, only to stop when they got to the doorway and to Shoto's horror. My soba! He cried as he watched Litten stick its head out of his favorite bowl, with soba covering its face. It looked to them and like it didn't care. Litten stuck its face back into the bowl and finished Shoto's lunch. Before they could react, Litten ran by the three of them, likely to hide in Izuku's room, said boy looking down to the ground in shame. Enji was surprised at the mixed atmosphere when he got home that night. On one hand, Fuyumi and Tuya seemed to be in a good mood, Fuyumi more than her elder brother. But with Natsuo, he seemed to radiate anger, especially towards Litten when it had wandered into the living room and laid down on Izuku's lap. Meanwhile said boy seemed to be upset about something. Before Enji could ask, he saw Rei give him a look of "don't ask" and "we'll talk later." And like that, Enji never asked. The rest of the night played by with the same uneasiness until everyone headed to bed, Natsuo making it a point to make as much noise as he could. Once alone in their bedroom, Enji turned to his wife. What exactly happened? He asked, getting straight to the point. Rei sighed as she fell onto the bed. Not exactly one thing. It was many, she groaned. But it has one thing in common, Izuku's pet cat. What's the matter with Litten? Seemed to be behaving fine earlier and the vet didn't find anything wrong with it. Enji was now definitely confused. Like he said, the cat was fine when it was with Izuku. What did it do? First it destroyed Fuyum's notes, then it stole Tuya's special blanket. Next, he stretched, bit and I think burned Natsuo's favorite ball. Don't ask how it burned the ball, and then it ate Shoto's lunch. Izuku had to give his lunch to say sorry. Rei let out a long groan as she ran her fingers through her hair. So now everyone is annoyed with the cat. Meanwhile Izuku feels terrible because he brought Litten here and it's done nothing to him, so it clearly doesn't like the kids. So yeah, it's been a hard day. Enji cringed as he listened to Rei. He took the spot next to her on the bed as she let out a sigh. He had a feeling something like this would happen and lo and behold, it had. Don't worry about it, Enji said as he placed his hand on Rei's knee. We can get a trainer for Litten. It would be easier to get rid of Litten but rather not risk this ruining the progress we've made with Izuku. He heard Rei hum in agreement as he patted her knee. Good, we'll do that. Rei let out a long yawn as she stretched herself out in the bed before she got back up and walked to her dresser. But I'm tired and I want to sleep. It wasn't till that Saturday, Enji and Rei were able to get the entire family in a meeting. Sadly Litten had only made things worse with more issues with the kids and from the hateful glare he was giving to the purring cat in Izuku's lap. Natsuo was the most set off. So what's this about? Fuyumi asked from her spot on the couch between Shoto and Izuku, the latter stroking Litten. This better not be like the last big family meeting. Tuya spoke up from his corner of the room as he looked up from his phone. Last time we had this type of meeting you said we were getting a new sibling. The second the words were said, Rei turned beet red, Fuyumi groaned and Enji gave his eldest son a dirty look. Seriously Tuya, that's inappropriate, Enji barked, which caused Tuya to flinch. No, we're not having another baby. Fair to say think there are enough kids for us now. To Enji's surprise, Izuku and Shoto let out a disappointed mmm. Frankly not surprising from the youngest of the family. He thought. After a moment he cleared his throat to get everyone's attention again back to the topic. What we're here to discuss in the issues as of late me and your mother have had to deal why dash. Before Enji could finish his sentence, he saw Tuya turn as white as Rei and Fuyumi's hair. Ugh, if this has anything to do with those bumps in the night, it's nothing suspicious. I've just been having strange dreams and it makes me move in my sleep, nothing else at all. An awkward silence fell over the living room. Even looked up and gave the eldest Todoroki child a strange look as he started sweating intensely. Ugh, hi, that's not what we're here to discuss. Enji let out as he continued to stare at his eldest with a mix of confusion and surprise. Anyway, we need to discuss a few issues that have been happening around the house. After taking a breath, Enji turned and looked towards Izuku. When the young boy saw the look he was getting, he instinctively held Litten tighter. Litten has been causing a lot of problems and it needs to stop. He'll get better. He's just still settling, Izuku pleaded. Yes. We're getting rid of the DMN cat. Natsuo cheered at the same time Izuku spoke up. The younger boy gave Natsuo a look of horror, but the elder boy either didn't notice or didn't care. We're not getting rid of Litten. Enji called, which brought Natsuo's little celebration to an abrupt stop, while Izuku looked back at Enji in surprise. Litten has been a problem, there's no debate, but we can't get rid of him if he's just acting up, he explained. Izuku's expression turned to one of relief. Natsuo though. This isn't fair. That stupid cat is messing with our stuff and you're not doing anything. Natsuo screamed. He stomped his foot in frustration as he glared at his father. Natsuo, calm down, this happens with new pets. We've just decided Litten is to be trained, besides he hasn't hurt anyone. Enji spoke with a firm tone. Natsuo didn't seem to care, however. But the fleabag ruined my favorite football and keeps hissing at me, why should it be allowed here? Natsuo screamed. Shoto flinched and reached for Fuyumi, and Tuya cringed at his younger brother's outburst. And what do you do? Oh, you pay stupid money just so it doesn't act up. Natsuo, that's enough. You're making a mountain out of a molehill, calm down, Enji shouted, as he stood up to face his son. This only seemed to fuel Natsuo's drive to argue. No. It isn't fair and I don't want that mangy cat here any dash. Out of nowhere, Natsuo was tackled to the ground, but not by Tuya or Fuyumi, but Izuku. Enji watched as Izuku beat his little fist against Natsuo, obviously not hurting the older boy, but he didn't react. Stop calling Litten those mean things. You're even worse than Bakugu. Izuku's scream rocked the room. Enji saw a look of horror quickly form on Natsuo's face, but before he could react, Izuku got off Natsuo and bolted back to the couch. He scooped up Litten and before anyone could say a word, the two were out of the room and the sound of Izuku's door being slammed shut echoed through the house. To Enji's surprise, he saw two smoking holes on the floor by the couch. Izuku couldn't stop the tears. It was like a lever had been pulled or a DMN had broken. After bolting back into his room, his instincts kicked in and he hid away in the closet. He clutched Mr. Patches in one hand and the other he used to hold Litten close. The kitten seemed to be trying his best to raise his favorite person's spirits, but the nuzzling hardly helped. He's just baying, stupid. Izuku blubbered through the tears. He buried his face into his chest as the crying wouldn't stop. Amidst all the crying, a knock came from Izuku's door. After a few moments Izuku heard the door open and close. After a minute another knock, this time right outside the cupboard. Izuku chose to ignore it however, so after a few moments, light broke into the dark closet and Izuku looked up to see Enji, who was worried for the young boy. The pair were left in almost complete silence, the only sounds being Litten's meows and the sounds Izuku made as he continued to cry. This is sadly too familiar, Enji spoke, recalling his first meeting with the boy. Izuku for once didn't care. He heard a small thud and saw Enji take a seat by the doorframe, making sure he didn't block Izuku's way out if the boy wanted to leave his little den. I don't want to, Litten Tio, go, Izuku wheezed, as he held Litten close. Enji hated seeing the boy like this. I can now he's not nice to everyone, but he helps me sleep and he's really nice. He's not going anywhere, Enji said as he reached into his pocket and held out a piece of paper. Izuku looked up and after Enji instituted on his taking it, Izuku cautiously took the paper. On the front said professional pet trainer. We know he's important to you and we won't replace him, but we can't sacrifice the other's happiness just for you. It'd be very selfless and mean, do you understand? Izuku nodded as he continued to try and read the paper. The tears made it hard to read clearly. Enji was surprised when Izuku started giggling. Looking back he saw Litten liking the young boy's cheek. Enji smiled at the sight. He may be a pain, but that cat might help Izuku make leaps and bounds in his development, maybe just in time for Shoto's next year of school. No, he like a new friend in class, Enji smiled. He readjusted his place by the doorframe and pulled out his phone and sneakily snapped a few photos and sent them to Rei, knowing his beloved would kill him for missing something so adorable. It had been a week since the little incident. It took a day till Izuku was ready to leave his room and the second the boy was free from his room, Natsuo was there apologizing like Rei had never seen the boy do so before in her life. Almost made her wish her family or even Enji's family were that forgiving. Today Rei was left by herself, well mostly as Enji had decided to take Izuku back to the hero agency today and she had been left with Litten. Just as she finished putting away the washing she headed into the living, only to find. Stop right there you little menace. Ray shouted as he caught Litten about to drag his claws on the side of the couch. The cat glared at the Todorki matriarch, almost as if challenging her. Now you look here, mister, you'll be trained, but that's not happening for another week, but I'm going to warn you, that's not an excuse for you to mess with our stuff. Ray stared down the red and black cat. The small creature returned the glare. That's when Ray had an idea. You know, Izuku cares for you so much, now I can't stop him, and I understand why he likes you, and I know you like him. But there's something you have to remember, I'm the one who runs this house, and I can easily change some things that will make you so annoyed, Ray said as she in a way dealt her hand. Litten tilted his head at the woman, almost as if he was asking what she could do. Well, I sort all the food, now a good kitty will be treated very well in this house, Ray explained as she crouched by the couch and got closer to the still ready to claw Litten. But a bad cat will get the worst food I can find. I won't poison you, malnourish you, or anything like that. But I'll make sure you hate what I get you. Oh, there's also a small thing. I heard a solution to angsty pets is a wee. She held up her right hand and with her index finger and her middle finger, made a snipping motion like a pair of scissors. The moment Litten realized what Ray meant, the Todoroki matriarch was sure the cat turned pure white like her, Fuyumi and Shoto's hair for a few seconds. She gave the cat an evil smirk. So Litten, are you going to be a good kitty cat? She leaned until she was inches from Litten's face. Or are you going to mess with my home? The moment the last words passed her lips, Litten bolted from the couch and into the kitchen. A few seconds later he returned with a rag in his mouth and tried to clean a spot on the floor. Ray smiled and she walked over and petted the cat's back. There's a good kitty, you be kind to us and you'll never be alone or sad again. To say Izuku was confused was an understatement. The last couple of weeks Ray and Enji had been so busy and the Greeneat had no idea what was up. It was when he saw Ray stumble past his bedroom as he was playing with Litten, she carrying a load of supplies from bows to different colored paper. However, she failed to notice dropping a roll of tape. After a moment of hesitation, Izuku got up from his spot and grabbed the roll of tape and just spotted Ray as she shut the door to Enji's office. Quietly Izuku made his way up the hall, and as he reached the door to the office, he heard Ray and Enji were talking about something, and from Ray's tone it was important. Okay, I grabbed the last of the stuff from last year, what do we do now? Ray asked as she put the Christmas supplies down by her husband's desk. Ray. For the last time, we didn't need to use the old wrapping paper, Enji groaned as he lifted a half-used roll of Christmas wrapping paper. He cringed as he looked at the design. It was one based on him with a chibi or childish design of him in various exaggerated expressions. It's not like we're broke or need to save. And an attitude like that never ends well, too, Ray declared, pointing her index finger out just inches from Enji's nose. We need to set an example, especially for Shoto and Izuku. We can't just waste materials. Besides, I know the kids will love to see this again. Ray beamed as she held up the chibi Endeavor wrapping paper. I swear the second you do this officially, I want it all. Enji groaned as he watched his wife at the wrapping paper. He cursed how Fuyumi had found several rolls of it last year and he had failed to destroy the last of it after last year's embarrassment. But as he watched Ray fuss over the different expressions, he felt his heart soar, reminded why he had fallen for the ice user, or in his eyes, the ice queen. But just as Enji was going to act on these thoughts, the two were interrupted when a knock came from the door. After Enji said to enter, the door slowly slid open, and in walked Izuku, with Litten just at his heels. Oh hi, Izuku. Ray beamed as she crouched to Izuku's level. What's the matter? Do you want to play or do you and Litten want a snack? The boy simply shook his head and held up a roll of tape. Ray looked at the tape absently only to burl around and realize where Izuku got it. Whoops, I must have dropped, she chucked as she took the tape from Izuku and placed it with the other supplies, frowning when she saw Enji with a smirk. Oh haha, like you've never dropped stuff before. Before the two could start up another conversation, Izuku spoke up. What's with all the paper? Izuku asked innocently as he pointed to the pile of wrapping paper, tape, and Christmas tags. Oh, we're just getting ready for Christmas, Ray explained with a smile as she pulled out a notebook with a pen and started scribbling something down. Like what to get, the plan for the days, and what movies to watch. Say Izuku, what do you want to watch? Ugh, Izuku just stared blankly at the two adults as he thought about Ray's question. I've never done Christmas. For a solid minute, not a sound was made as Ray stared blankly at the young boy, till she dropped her pen and let out a low huh, before falling onto the bed. Ray! Izuku and Enji cried. Enji checked on his wife and found she was okay, just reeling from what Izuku had told her. Enji wanted to be surprised but he knew Ray well enough to know the cause. Are you okay? Izuku asked as he walked to the bed. Before he could reach it, however, Enji took the boy by the shoulders and led him out of the room. I think we should go, he replied calmly as they reacted to his and Ray's bedroom door. Is Ray okay? Izuku asked again, worry still in his voice as he looked back at the Todoroki matriarch. Yes, just mind is lagging a bit from what you said, give it a minute but best leave before she catches up, Enji explained as he rushed Izuku out of the room and shut the bedroom door. A moment later, Rei caught up. What wehot? Rei cried, her scream being heard for over a mile as birds scattered and many neighbors looked around in confusion in the sudden cry. After Enji leads Izuku away from his office, the pro-hero decided he had some time to kill and leads Izuku to the living room. Thankfully it was mostly empty, the only occupant being Litten, who was fast asleep on a nearby shelf near the heating vent. The small cat had a content grin as it dozed. Enji let out a sigh as he relaxed on the couch. A moment after letting out a sigh he turned to Izuku, who rather comically copied what Enji had done. The man smiled and ruffled the boy's hair. Well then, what do you want to watch? Enji asked as he reached for the remote. As expected, the TV had been left on the Christmas movie channel. Enji smiled at what he just caught the beginning of. The original How the Grinch Stole Christmas, my favorite. Enji smiled as the narrator said how the Grinch's heart was 2 sizes too small. If it weren't for the slight tugging on his shirt, Enji would have gotten lost in rewatching the holiday classic. He turned to see a still confused Izuku. What's Christmas about? He asked in an innocent tone. Enji felt a pang of sorrow remembering what Izuku had said in his room. Well, in many countries it's celebrated differently, like say in the United States and the United Kingdom, fairly similar in spending time with family and friends, being grateful for what you have, and trying to spend joy. Meanwhile, in Japan, we usually celebrate with friends or our partners. No, it's catered for young people to ask someone out, Enji explained as best he could to Izuku, who just nodded as he took in all the information. So what are we going to do? Well, Rei has always preferred we do a Western-style Christmas, meaning we used to do dates on Christmas, but after Tuya was born, Rei and I just found we loved spending the day with our kids and watching movies. We do enjoy the usual chicken dinner and cake. Enji smiled when Izuku's face lit up at the mention of cake and he swore he saw Litten stir at the mention of chicken. Well, what about this Santa? I always got told I was on the naughty list. What's that exactly? Izuku's question hit Enji hard. Now forgetting the movie, he turned to face Izuku. Izuku, if anyone should be is on the naughty list, it's those who told you that, but that's from the tale of Father Christmas, Santa Claus. He delivers presents to the good boys and girls in the world while leaving nothing but coal to the naughty children. How does he know? Izuku asked and Enji chuckled. Well, to quote the song, he sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake, he knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake. When Enji turned back to Izuku, he was shocked to see Izuku holding a pillow and clutching it like it was a life preserver. He watches me? Izuku stuttered out his question through chattering teeth. Enji got a blast of nostalgia, remembering Fuyumi having almost the same reaction, the only difference being she clung to his side so her papa could protect her. Izuku, it's... No dash. That's super scary. Izuku screamed as he thought of someone always watching him. Izuku, it's made up. Enji screamed at the top of his voice, causing Izuku to be driven from his overactive imagination. Only now when he looked at the pro-hero, he had tears in his eyes. Why would you say that then? He cried out his question, making Enji wish he wired it better. It's just, Santa Claus. Enji was trying his best to remember how he handled this with Fuyumi. Sadly, Izuku was like Fuyumi, so he couldn't backtrack, and then it came to him like a bolt of lightning. Santa Claus was inspired and in tribute to Saint Nicholas. It was said he performed many great deeds, but all were around his kindness. So, he's not real? Izuku asked as he buried his head into the cushion. Enji just placed a hand on the boy's head and ruffled his green hair. No, but I like to think the idea of Santa Claus inspires people to be better. But with that over, you must partake in a Todoroki tradition. Izuku looked up from the cushion curiously as Enji smiled and grabbed the remote. Let's find you a favorite Christmas movie. So things went well with the kids? Rei shrieked as she shoved the unwrapped gifts into the closet and burled around to spot Enji smiling in the doorway. Don't do that. I almost had a heart attack. She screamed as she twatted her husband. The slaps did nothing, but Enji still laughed as he raised his arms to defend himself. I couldn't help myself, you were so in the zone it practically screamed. I'm easy to scare, besides your scared face is adorable, Enji explained, fighting off a chuckle as Rei went red in the face. Sue, how's Izuku? Rei asked as she fanned her face. Fine, asking a lot of questions about Christmas, not surprised about him not having one, but still annoys me. Well, he's with us now and I'll make sure every Christmas is special. Yeah, about that, I had an idea for Izuku, something from you and me, be simple but I know it'd be the highlight of this Christmas. Well, get on with it, I gotta hear this. Izuku knew he risked getting in trouble with Rei or Enji, but he had to do it. After dinner, before he could return to his room, Fuyumi had brought him to her room with Shoto and threw on some more Christmas movies as they relaxed on her bed. After a couple of movies the three were fast asleep, only for Izuku to wake up a while later. Seeing his opportunity to finish his task, he crept as quietly as he could back to his room, and carefully turned his Endeavor-themed lamp on. Said lamp helped illuminate the room enough for him but not enough to be spotted unless you looked under the door. Izuku was working as fast as he could to finish what he had started a few hours before. His heart had urged him to do this and he was hoping it would pay off. I really hope I don't mess up, I want to show them how thankful I am. Izuku thought as he stopped to look at what he was working on. It was one of several drawings, each a moment he had experienced with each family member that he loved, from the snow day and hot chocolate with Fuyumi, Tuya teaching Izuku how to beat Natsuo at a video game, Rei hugging him after he had scrapped his knee, and the last piece and the most important, when the hero Endeavor walked him out of the hospital and to his home. They're the best. I hope this never ends, I love them all. Izuku fought back the tears as he carefully finished and folded up the last drawing. He gathered up all the drawings and snuck into the living room. To his surprise he found Litten standing by the tree, sniffing a few of the presents. Izuku giggled as he passed his friend and placed the drawings under the tree. Izuku smiled at a job well done. He almost screamed though when Litten decided to lick his cheek and the young boy swore he saw the cat snigger. The sight before Rei was the definition of cute, no debate. When she had gone to wake Fuyumi, she found her daughter had seemingly invited Izuku and Shoto to her room to watch movies, and apparently they had fallen asleep under the covers. She smiled as she saw the TV playing Fuyumi's favorite Christmas film, The Santa Claus. Rei giggled as she saw the main character stumble at trying to be Santa. She let out a sigh and knelt next to her youngest. With great care she shook Shoto till she saw the boy start to stir. When the boy opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was the smiling face of his mother. Mooring Shoto, Rei whispered. Shoto just smiled, and his just made Rei's smile widen. Merry Christmas, do you want to help me wake up Fuyumi and Shoto or head into the living room? Rei asked, only for Shoto to grin. He got out from under the covers and stood on the bed. Rei tried her hardest not to burst out in laughter as Shoto poked at Fuyumi's forehead till she started to stir. Only with a frown, she glared up at her little brother, who only smiled. Merry Christmas Fuyumi! Shoto cheered, only to be flicked right in the center of his forehead. The youngest fell back and thankfully Rei was there to catch him, though she did laugh at Fuyumi's satisfied grin as she got up and subsequently woke up Izuku. The green-haired boy let out a yawn. To Rei's surprise, Litten appeared almost from thin air and jumped up onto Fuyumi's bed and lay across Izuku's lap as he unconsciously petted the black and red cat's back. Merry Christmas Izuku! Fuyumi cheered as she pulled the boy into a sideways hug, only for Izuku to pout and turn to the older girl. Oh, did we fall asleep watching the movie? He asked in what could only be described as the most hilarious and innocent question he ever posed. Fuyumi laughed as she gave the boy a tighter hug, which he was quick to reciprocate. Something that made Rei smile. So much progress in less than a year, I hope it only gets better for him, especially after today. Rei's thoughts were cut short when Shoto poked her cheek trying to get her attention. When she looked down at the dual-haired boy in her grasp, he smiled. Can we open our presents? The atmosphere in the living room was electric. Shoto, Natsuo, and surprisingly Litten were looking at all the wrapped presents. Shoto tried to grab one only to hear his father let out a huff, telling him to leave it alone. Meanwhile, the hero and his eldest were sitting on the couch as they waited for Rei to come back. Lastly, Izuku and Fuyumi were by the back door as they watched the snowfall. Fuyumi was thinking about the fun she and the family could have later on, while Izuku was more excited to get into another snowball fight with Shoto. A minute later, Rei finally returned with a few presents. As soon as she made it over to where the others were, she could hear Shoto trying to hold his excitement in. Classic, my youngest is the biggest Christmas fan. Rei smiled as she placed down the presents. Clearing her throat to get everyone's attention, she smiled. Now I know we all want to open our presents, especially a certain dual-haired boy. Rei smiled as she saw Shoto giggle. But before I start handing out the presents, I like to say, it's been an amazing year, and while wasn't always the easiest, I'm proud we made it through another year as a family. Rei smiled as she saw everyone in the room smile or blush at her words, sadly except for Izuku, who just looked away. With a smile on her face, Rei turned back to the Christmas present pile and began sifting through the many presents till she found the one she was looking for. With an even bigger smile she lifted a big box wrapped in Chibi Endeavor's wrapping paper. The kids giggled as NG notableable starting smoldering, especially when Rei gave him the box. It's only fit you get the first present. Rei, did you use all the old wrapping paper for just my presents? NG asked as he held back a groan. Rei only shrugged. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But don't worry sweetie, at least you can say there won't be any left in the house. Ray finished her explanation with a kiss. The two adults heard at least two kids saying how gross their affection was, but they didn't care. They smiled as Ray went back to the pile and pulled another present, this one wrapped in All Might themed wrapping paper. Oh, it looks like Izuku is our runner-up. The green-haired boy had a look of surprise as Ray handed him the present. So tell me Izuku, who's it from? For a moment Izuku gave Ray a blank expression till she gestured down to the parcel where he saw the tag. He let out a gasp as he read the name. It's from you. Izuku cheered. Ray gave the boy a nod and encouraged him to open the present. He was quick to tear the wrapping paper away and let out a gasp as he held up his present. It was a Christmas jumper. It was well made and soft to the touch. Izuku stared at awe as he looked at the front. The main color was green and on the front, Izuku saw in the center had a massive eye, knitted with black wool and around it with various things associated with Christmas from a Christmas box, a reindeer and a Christmas wreath. Izuku couldn't hold back his smile as Ray encouraged him to put it on. Once it was on, the young boy barreled into Ray's embrace. I love it. He cried as he hugged Ray with all his might. The older woman couldn't hold back her smile as she returned the hug. I'm glad you love it. Sadly I didn't make it. I tried before, and let's just say Enji couldn't stop laughing that Christmas. The Todoroki kids and even Enji suppressed laughs, only to make Ray pout at all of them. Oh yeah, pick on your own mother. I'm sorry Ray, but it was hilarious your attempt. Enji laughed back, only making Ray's face turn a shader redder. Before the topic of Ray's failed attempt at sewing could continue, Fuyumi got up from her seat and pulled up a present. The box was small but wrapped in white wrapping paper with a red bow on top. Fuyumi stared at the box with a confused look. Ray said it was delivered in the post, giving away it wasn't from the family. All it said on the tag was it was for her. She made her way back to her spot and carefully unwrapped the gift. She let out an awe as she saw what it was. Inside was a stuffed bunny plushie. Fuyumi was so enamored with the cute plushie, she failed to see Natsuo pull out a note from the box. After he gave it a quick read, he smiled like the Grinch himself. Merry Christmas to my favorite snow princess. Natsuo recited in a dramatic voice. Fuyumi turned and saw her younger brother had found something meant for her alone and bolted to grab the letter, only for Natsuo to climb over the couch as he continued to read the letter. I hope you have a good Christmas and I can't wait to hang out with you again. I hope you like the little guy, saw him, and thought you like a bunny to hug. Natsuo continued to recite as Fuyumi chased him around the room like a bat out of hell. Hope we can have some more projects together and hang out, from your favorite classmate, R-. Be it luck on Fuyumi's side, Natsuo failing to watch where he was going or Tuya sticking his leg out to trip up his younger brother. Natsuo hit the ground hard and Fuyumi quickly grabbed the note and stuffed it into her PJs. Ohu Fuyumi has a special someone, Natsuo cooed from his spot on the floor. Fuyumi only glared at her brother as she held the plushie and strutted over to where Izuku and Shoto were and sat between the two boys. For the next hour, the gifts were passed out, all the kids getting a variety of new clothes, things that Izuku saw they had clearly been asking for. This was proven right as he saw Fuyumi unwrap a bundle of textbooks. The titles were too confusing for Izuku but Fuyumi was happy to get them, so he was happy. Shoto got an interesting selection. He got quite a few things revolving around his dad's hero persona. ATM he was wearing a limited edition Endeavor hoodie as he played with All Might and Endeavor action figures. Natsuo cheered when he unwrapped a new football. He glared at Litten almost as if warning him not to touch his new ball. Litten just glared back. Tuya was interesting as he got similar stuff to Shoto and Fuyumi, only his hero-based presents weren't entirely Endeavor-based and featured different heroes. His books again Izuku couldn't understand but from what he heard Tuya say, they were hero-based, more about becoming a hero. But Izuku. The gifts he got were amazing. He was given hero books, action figures, new clothes, and even a new pair of shoes. Izuku felt like his heart was going to explode with this amount of affection. Ray had gotten him the Christmas sweater, Tuya had gotten him a blanket, Natsuo and Shoto had gotten him a hero action figure each, Shoto adding a hug for his best friend at the end. Fuyumi had bought some books to help with learning. Enji let out a laugh at the amount of books the family had gotten, only to hand Izuku a gift from him. It turned out to be a large plush of him. Ray giggled when they saw it was bigger than Izuku and Shoto. Izuku let out a chuckle when he saw Litten by the living room doorway. The cat had seemed to throw a hissy fit when it wasn't given a present immediately. Izuku saw Ray smile as she picked up the last box in the pile and walked over to the little cat. Now no need to throw a tantrum, Ray spoke as she crouched by Litten, who just continued to ignore her. Now, while your settling PRD wasn't the easiest, you've been a very good PP cat this year, so you've more than earned this. Ray pushed the present closer to Litten, getting the cat's attention. Ray carefully opened the box and let Litten get up and inspect it for himself. As soon as the cat looked into the box, he instantly was in the box. Ray giggled at the cat's reaction to the gift. It was a simple ball of string, but NG had commissioned it to be made from heat-resistant materials. For some reason several of Litton's toys showed damage from heat, but no one figured out how it happened. They just put it down as Litton being around things that damaged the boys, like the dryer or boiler. The rest of the day went by like a blur for Izuku. After everyone got their presents and cleaned up, Ray put on a few Christmas movies, one being her favorite, that being Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Christmas dinner was a fun experience as Natsuo kept pestering Fuyumi on her mystery crush, and Tuya just helped his younger brother with the questions. If Izuku could describe the dinner, it'd be the greatest dinner he'd ever had: the chicken, the cake, and even a few things that NG had gotten that were apparently very popular in other countries. Izuku had become a fan of pigs in blankets. Soon the day winded down. Izuku and the Todoroki family found themselves back in the living room, this time with Shoto's favorite Christmas film. Ray looked down at the two boys in her arms as she saw them fight off the exhaustion from that day. "Think it's time for a couple of hero fans to go to bed," Ray said as she adjusted her hold on the boys and pulled herself. "Izuku, gift to the family. Wait, I forgot something." Izuku cried as he jumped off the couch and crawled to the coffee table. After a few moments of looking, Izuku smiled and pulled out a stack of letters. "I made these," he muttered. Quickly he handed one to everyone. Ray was the first to open up hers and let out an ah as she saw the drawing. "This is so sweet, Izuku," Ray gasped, the memory clear in her head as she looked at the drawing. "Impressive work, Izuku. I might just get you to help draw out my hero costume," Tuya said. The young boy gasped at the offer. The rest of the family were having the same reaction. The only difference was when Shoto came up and hugged the green-haired boy, and then the two were scooped up by the preteen Fuyumi, saying she gave him the best hug of his life. The three started laughing. NG smiled as he looked at the drawing, remembering how scared the little boy he found in that closet was, and now seeing him laugh as Fuyumi and Shoto tried to squeeze the life out of him. He turned to look at his wife and saw her brush away a tear. Seeing now would be the perfect opportunity, he nudged her and directed her to where they hid Izuku's last present. She mouthed, asking if he was sure. NG only nodded. "Oh my, I completely forgot something." Ray gasped, her acting so off that NG cringed internally and pitched the bridge of his nose as Ray dashed to the nearby cupboard and pulled out a present wrapped in the last of the Chibi Endeavor wrapping paper, only making NG cringe more. "I forgot to put this under the tree last night. Thank goodness I remember. Who knows how long it would have been in there." She strolled over the two kids, and the preteen pulled Izuku free from the tangle of limbs and handed him the present. "What's this?" Izuku asked as he examined the present, even shaking it to see if there was anything loose inside. "Open it and find out. I promise you'll love it." Izuku tore the wrapping paper open and saw the gift was two picture frames. The first one was a picture of Izuku and the Todoroki family in the garden, shortly after Izuku had brought Litton home. Izuku smiled as he found himself in the photo being hugged by Fuyumi and Shoto. "I love it." Izuku cheered, but as he went to hug Ray she held her hand up to stop him. "Turn the frame around and then look at the second frame," she asked kindly of Izuku. He was quick to turn over the frame and found writing on the back, saying, "The day it was approved." Izuku was confused by the message, but when he looked at Ray she just pointed to the second frame. Now NG was standing next to Ray as he watched Izuku. Putting the picture down on the table, Izuku looked to the second frame and was now more confused. In the frame was a piece of paper. Izuku was stumped, only knowing a few words on the paper. At most, he could see NG and Ray's signatures, his name brought up several times, and a few other words that made no sense. What drew his attention was one of the words on top of the paper in bold writing. Izuku scrunched up his face in confusion. He couldn't understand it but remembered a technique Fuyumi taught him. "If there's a word giving you a problem, sound it out and you will get it." Fuyumi's voice rang through Izuku's head as clear as day. Taking in a breath, Izuku started the exercise. Adoption. The second Izuku had sounded out the word, there was a crash from the couch as Fuyumi and Tuya had fallen out of their seats and gaped at Izuku like he had grown another head. "No way!" The pair screamed. This was just annoying Izuku as it just added to his confusion. He turned back to a giggling Ray. "What's this?" Izuku asked, holding up the second gift to the Todoroki matriarch. Ray smiled as she took the picture frame and showed it to Izuku. "This, Izuku, is a very special piece of paper that we will cherish because it says officially me and NG are your parents and that you're a Todoroki, only if you want this. If not, then don't worry, we won't hate you and we can understand," Ray explained as she hid her face behind the picture frame, worry making her scared of the potential response. NG gripped her shoulder and gestured to look. Izuku's face was almost pure red as tears poured from his eyes and started to hiccup as he looked at the pair. Just as Ray instinctively reacted for Izuku to wipe the tears away, he burrowed into her, even making her fall onto the floor back first, and the kid wailed into her Christmas jumper. Yes. I want to be Tita door dash. Izuku's voice broke into more wails as he cried more than anyone had ever seen him before. Rei placed a comforting hand on Izuku's back and started rubbing circles as Enji reached down and ruffled the boy's hair. Enji looked up to see how the other kids were taking it, and it was easy to tell they were all happy. Fuyumi was crying as she shook Tuya, going on about how they had another baby brother. The eldest just smiled at his parents' action. Natsuo was smiling so much that Enji thought he might be stuck with that grin, and Shoto was going nuts, saying how his best friend was his brother now.
Okay, sadly the chapter is over, and if you enjoyed the video just leave a like, and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.